Welcome back to the Creative Tavern, everyone. My name is Christopher Lee. Today is June 15th, 2022, and I am here today with my buddy Michael. And a little bit about me: I am again, my name is Christopher, and I worked in the creative design industry for about 10 years, and worked with companies such as Walt Disney Imagineering and Universal Creative. And yeah, I'm here with my friend Michael.
Hello, everybody. My name is Michael L. Wilker. I am also from the theme park industry, where I was a creative producer, but I'm also a writer. I've got one book out, but hopefully many more to come. Yeah, I've worked with Chris at multiple companies in the past, including Walt Disney Imagineering and Universal Studios. Um, and recently, Chris and I both were in between big projects, and we said, hey, we've never done a project together, and we both have time. Let's put our heads together and do something. And so I said, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do that. And we took a long, winding road to get to where we are now, which basically resulted in us saying, let's learn how to make a video game, and let's also stream ourselves making that, or doing that process. That way, other people can learn from our creative process and our design sessions, and hopefully inspire other people and like role model for others that creative process. And that kind of turned into, well, hey, let's make a platform for um, other creators to come together and and kind of share in these sort of creative adventures. And that's how the Creative Tavern came to be.
Mhm.
So welcome.
Yeah, welcome. I say this every week. The Creative Tavern is a platform for everyone who is creative and would like to share in our journey as well as their journey at all. So if you're in the chat, if you like to share any awesome, amazing drawings or song or voice acting or woodwork or XYZ, as long as it's creative, feel free to go into our Discord and post it, and then we will all take a look and revel at your amazing creation. And yeah, like just like Michael said, we basically, worked with each other for about half a year trying to figure out what we want to do, and then lo and behold, we decided on doing a rail shooter game, and so that's what we've been working on for the past 2 months now, and we've gotten a pretty good headway now. I mean, I think it's like 2 months and 2 months and 2 weeks ish kind of. I think we're on episode 20 now. So, but anyways, we're very happy you're here, and so let's dive right into it. And this week, because it's a Wednesday, it is Michael's turn to share some of his stuff that he's worked on the past week. Very excited to see what you've worked on, Michael.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited to share with you guys. Okay, so let me I guess there you go, full screen here. I'll do smoother video. So I've got a couple things to share this time.
Yay.
Um, and forgive the temporary infinite uh, recursion, or whatever that's called.
Oh, good.
Um, so the two like I guess actually I've got about a three-part update for us today. I'm going to
Nice.
show you what I've done since we last talked in the actual rail shooter. I'm also going to show you my Unity learning
Nice.
course
Nice.
progress. I've made a whole other game following the tutorial. And third, a kind of an update to last session when we kind of went away from that session saying like, yeah, okay, what am I going to do
Mhm. Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
going forward with regard to the schedule? Because when we looked at the schedule, we realized like, oh crap, there isn't a
Yeah.
lot of time between now and trying to launch a beta in September.
Right, right.
Um, oh boy, howdy. Um, so anyway, I'll kind of go through those three, probably in that order, I guess.
Yeah, sounds good.
Um,
And speaking of howdy, Captain BluBlu is here. Ahoy,
oh,
Captain. Hello.
Captain BluBlu, welcome.
Hope you're having a good night or early morning. He.
Whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Um, all right. So what we're saying here in Unity, this is basically the sort of like sandbox prototype um, of the game with a couple of elements that are going to be in the first scene, or like scene 1, 2, which originally was like two different scenes, but has since kind of been combined into one because they had a lot of the same elements.
Mhm.
Um, but I have not been focused on really figuring out like how that scene's going to go in a sort of like gray box way where it's like, okay, yeah, this is going to happen here, and then we're going to fly
Sure.
over this way, and this is really just a way for me to use a sort of sandbox to figure out like, how do I get the enemies to fly around the player?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
it's basically just a big sandbox for me to build the tools and build the systems that are going to be in the final game. So if I hit play here, we'll see a sort of the game kind of starts to play, and you can see we're flying out of this big capital ship, and we've got two different fleets of ships. The ones that are directly in front of me right now, these are like our friendlies. They actually use the same model as the player ship. Um, and then what you saw kind of like flying by the camera earlier were the enemy drones. I'm going to kind of zoom up here so we can see them kind of coming around the other side of the ship here. You can see them with the like red eyes.
Mhm.
Um, so they're flying there, and then I can actually shoot and blow them up with my lasers if I'm careful enough at aiming. Um, and I had, as of the last time, I had
Whoa.
figured out how to do this boosting mechanic where I've got
Yeah.
these like particle effects that kind of this like blue stream that comes out of the back of the afterburners, and you get this sort of like anime speed lines on the screen. Though there is a bug. Sometimes those appear, sometimes those don't. I have no idea why, but that is what it is.
Right.
And then the rail for the player and the allies just stops right there. So I haven't figured out how to get that to connect into like a loop just yet.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I can go ahead and hit replay or replay there. So that's kind of like where I was before. I've since made a couple of updates. I'll kind of walk you through a few of those. One of the big ones was figure out this like gate system, which was basically the idea behind that was it would be really cool if there was a way where, and actually I can show you, So this green rail that you're seeing on the screen now, this is the player rail.
Mhm.
So this is the rail that the player's ship follows, which and for anybody who's been watching, this is going to be old news to you. But for in case there's anybody out there who hasn't seen a show yet, this rail system is basically works like a roller coaster where I can build this green rail and then put a cart on the rail and put the player ship in that cart. So when that cart moves, the player ship will actually move with that rail. And so what I do one of the things that I wanted to figure out is would there be a way to create a the mesh renderer is not there. The box collider. There we go. That's what I needed to in order to be able to see it. Would it be possible to put a cube, some kind of object, and make it invisible? So when you're actually, you can see it here with this green outline
Mhm.
because I'm in the Unity editor. But if I go into the Unity game and hit play again, you'll see that we'll fly over the top of that ship and it'll be invisible.
Mhm.
But as far as Unity is concerned, that cube is still there. It's still keeping track of it. So when the plane or when the player's ship flies through it, it could detect a collision. And I wanted to see like, well, could I use that as a trigger to do something so that way when the ship flies through there, I could use this as sort of like an invisible gate that then would trigger enemies to
Mm. Mhm.
suddenly spawn in, or maybe there'd be like I'd want a high speed section so the player would go through the first gate and it would go like, okay, hyperspeed time, whoosh, and then it would go really fast until it got to another gate, and then that gate would turn it off. But I was having a really hard time figuring out how to get that to work, and I'm pretty sure I figured out how to do it. So I'm gonna see if do. I think the way I have this set up, this event trigger Or actually, in my console here, we should be able to see a debug log thing, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, let's see. I'm going to play this, and I'm going to fly really quickly past all those guys. And these errors here are for new things that I've added.
Hmm.
So hopefully I'll show those in a second. We're about ready to fly through the gate, and no, nothing. Oh, actually, it did work. Um, you probably can't see it because I've got this set to smoother video, but actually, if I'm holding here, is the text clear enough for you to be able to read what the,
Mm,
the
I,
inspector
I,
stuff?
I,
Not really.
I could make it out. It's a little bit blurry, but I mean, if I stare at it long enough, I could, you know, com figure it out. Yeah.
Okay. Um, well, actually, I'm gonna do. Well, it's fine. You don't need to be able to read the exact text. The point is, um, in Unity, each object can have like different components, and those components can have little like tick boxes. So that box can be ticked or it can be empty. And if it's ticked, then it's like that value is true. If it's unticked, that value is false. Um, I figured out how to get one of those values to change when the player's ship flies through there. Um, so basically, all of that is this like not very exciting or sexy under the hood stuff that
Hmm.
was really exciting for me to finally be able to figure out. Yes, okay, I can get this object to detect, like, hey, I've been triggered by the player. Let me know what you want me to do now.
Hmm.
Um, and so what happened when I hit play is that this cube, in its default state, has a little tick box that's unchecked. And then when the player flies through it, that
It
box
checks it.
gets checked.
Cool.
Uh, so yeah, so that's something that I've finally figured out, which means I should be able to then program. And then there's a couple of other really cool things that I found too. That there's this piece of Unity code called broadcast message, which basically it can just send a signal, and then the other pieces of the code, if they have a listening script, they can hear that message when it's broadcast. Um,
Oh.
I'm still not 100% sure how to like really use that. Like I'm now aware that it exists,
Hmm. Hmm.
but I don't really know exactly how to use it. So I'm still experimenting with that.
Hmm.
So gate trigger, that was a big one that I was trying to figure out.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I mean, you say it's, I mean, not flashy or anything, but this is what makes the car run. This is what
yeah,
will activate
exactly.
things to happen in the environment. So while it's very elementary, it's also very essential.
Essential. Exactly. One other thing I wanted to do, yeah,
Oh,
I think,
and Captain BluBlu says, looking great and very exciting to see the player interacting with the surroundings.
yeah, thank you. Um, yeah, so one of the other things that I was trying to figure that has been like on my to-do list for a really long time was like getting the enemies to do something other than just
Mm.
fly around, because we want them to like attack the player and have the
Yeah,
player need to defend themselves.
right.
So one of the things that I figured out how to do there was to get um, the the ship to, or sorry, to get the drones to target the player, and
Oh, right.
I
Yeah.
did that with an experimental thing that's called the like I call it the look-see script, which is just a handful of code that basically just gets the ship to like look at and target the player, and
Nice.
so I think I've got the things turned on that I need to be able to show that to you. So I've got this one drone here. Nope, that's not working because he's facing away. Oh, I know why. Because I need to do this. And then it's going to turn it on. Yep, there we go. So now I'm going to get closer to this guy here who's kind of flying out ahead of everybody else. And you'll see when I move my ship
Oh,
around, yeah, he's
yeah.
looking at us.
That's cool.
So he's going, I need to make him go a little bit faster because he is not going. as fast as us. Oh, that's another cool thing that I've kind of like started to program into this,
Uh-huh.
which might be a little bit blurry, but a little bit later I'll switch to smoother resolution so you guys can actually see some of this stuff. But because I'm going to be showing you some uh, video or stuff that's like actually playing in game, I kind of want to keep it on smoother for now. But I've added some parameters where I can change like the different speeds that they're going, or like how uh, check boxes whether or not I want them to do certain things.
Mm.
Um, but anyway, so this guy, he's going a little bit faster now. He's going about the speed of the ship, but you can see that he is tracking us.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime I move, wait, why did he? Oh, I know why. Because he's on his own special rail. Um, I actually have another guy here who I'm going to go ahead and turn on for this purpose. Um, and this guy's a little bit special because I had another idea, uh, which actually was inspired by you, Chris. In I, I think it was last session, the last session that you did for us. Here, I'm going to turn this off while I'm kind of explaining this. In the last session, you had kind of showed the in your animatic, you had these sort of wingmen that would come in and fly out on the sides, and they'd hang out for a second, and then as soon as like the situation became dangerous, they would abandon you and they would
They're
like fly
useless.
away, right?
Yep.
And the way you had done that was you basically had them like attached to the players, so that as the player's ship was flying through the rail, they were
Mm-hmm.
with you
Mm-hmm.
always and
Yep.
moving on the rail, but sometimes they were just off of camera, but
Yep.
still like kind of like moving along with the player.
Yep.
So I thought, and I think that planted a seed in my brain because I like woke up one day and I was like, Rails on Rails, which was basically kind of like how I explained earlier. The way the Unity Rails system works, or at least the Cinemachine one that I'm using, is you've got the rail and you've got something called a cart that is an invisible object that moves along the rail, and
Uh-huh.
anything you put in that cart will move with it. So
Oh, sure.
in the case of like the way this the game that you're seeing right now is programmed, the player's ship is inside an invisible cart, and that cart is moving along the rail.
Mm.
And you can really put anything you want into that cart, any like other Unity objects. And technically, the rails are themselves objects. So I thought,
Mm-hmm.
what if I put another
Ah,
rail inside the cart? So I could have like a rail and a cart
sure.
moving along that rail, and another cart or another rail inside that cart, and then another cart on top of that rail. So you can
Yeah.
almost imagine like if you had actually built a roller coaster and stuck inside one of the cars on the roller coaster, and you built another track and then
Yeah.
had that track moving along.
Sure,
And I was
sure.
like, could this work? And sure enough, it totally works.
Oh,
So
wow.
what I did was, if I go in here to this guy, I gave him a rail on rail. So this little tiny circular rail is inside a cart that is on the player rail system. So you've
Uh-huh.
got kind of this main rail, and that little rail on rail, that little circular one, is actually in a cart that moves along the main rail. And the reason that that's potentially cool, I'm still kind of experimenting with it, is
Mm-hmm.
that it can allow me to, and let me make sure that this guy's moving at the right speed here. Yep, that should be perfect. So I'm going to hit play here, and I'll kind of explain like how this is working. So you can see the enemy that's like right out in front of us here. Oh, and actually he's shooting.
Oh,
That's another cool
oh,
thing that I forgot to
cool.
do is check that out.
Awesome.
And because he's targeting, he's actually like shooting at us.
Yeah.
Um, so what's neat about this is he can actually be on the player's rail, so he can just move out in front of us
Uh-huh.
and kind of stay with us. But in order to give him a little bit more movement, so it doesn't look like he's just staying perfectly, statically locked with our rail,
Yeah.
that rail on rail gives him a little bit of movement. Now, right now, he's not doing anything too interesting. He's just kind of, going in a tiny little circle on that rail.
Sure. Uh-huh.
Um, but with some adjustment, some fine tuning, uh, I think we can basically get it to a place where it feels really natural, and you can have a little fleet of them or a little horde of them that are kind of like
That's pretty
out in
cool.
front of you, flying with you.
Yeah.
Um, and because of the like, there are a couple of other things that I can program in there to like add a certain amount of randomness to their speeds, or maybe which rail that they're on. I don't really know.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I should be able to uh, create some variety there. But the point of all that is I finally got to this place where all these different pieces have come together, and now I finally can program in consistently enemies that can follow you ahead of you on the rail, which was like a design intent that we've had for a really long time.
Yeah.
And now we can do it. Oh, and
Whoa.
then yeah, he kind of, how interesting. I actually hadn't played it to this part yet. Um, yeah, he's kind of freaking out because he's got collision and
Yeah.
he's like hitting a couple of other things, and there's no more rail, but he's still on the other one. But anyway,
That's
I
cool.
thought that was pretty, yeah.
That's very cool.
And one of the other things that I can do is this other guy, I've also got him, I created a toggle for attack mode, which is basically a way to, and this was really difficult to figure out, took me a while, but to toggle for the drones to actually shoot their lasers.
Oh.
Um, and currently I'm not super satisfied with like I didn't want them to be able to shoot as fast as the player. But I'd kind of like maybe to try a couple different things, like maybe like some burst fire, maybe they shoot like a triple shot at a time, and then they take like a little bit of a break.
Uh-huh.
That might also be too much. Like what they're doing right now, where like about every second they're just shooting once. That might be fine because I anticipate we'll have a lot of scenarios where there's like a big swarm of them, and so if
Uh-huh.
they're all shooting at you at the same time, it's probably going to, you know, be pretty intense.
Yeah.
Um, but I can play with that. One of the other things that was really funny that I did was um, currently the the drones have collision detection. So when I shoot them,
Oh,
I can
nice.
actually blow up the drones, right?
Nice. Uh-huh.
But there's no collision detection for the player or for the ally ships, and part of the reason for that is because I haven't gone through and selected uh, selectively adjusted the box colliders, which is
Mm.
basically the like invisible box that detects like, oh hey, this thing is crashing into this other thing. Um, so currently the if I had those on for the player and the allies, they would all explode immediately inside the capital ship because they're
Mm-hmm.
inside that box collider. Um, so I'd need to make some adjustments there, but for the sake of just like, I'll kick that can down for future Michael to figure out.
Yeah.
Um, I have that turned off, so that's why when the drones are shooting us, they're not doing any damage. It's not hitting us, but
Right.
because they have detection on them, they can actually shoot each other, uh,
Oh.
which resulted in this really funny bug where if I go in and grab all of my enemy drones and I put them all in attack mode, which basically just tells them like, hey, every second, just shoot, just fire your gun.
Oh, jeez.
But not all of them have the like targeting script. So if let's see here, I need to position myself maybe like over here, because we're gonna have a bunch of these drones. Oh, actually, I need to go over here. Whoops. And let's. Wow, I am having a hard time moving around here. Here we go. Okay, so I've got like a fleet of drones over here. This is kind of like where the drones start, and then they start, flying out this way. And I think if I hit play here and then switch to here, yeah,
Oh,
you can see
oh,
them all shooting
they're
and
killing
just
each other.
blasting, yeah, the crap out of each other. So like half of them die before they even get around the corner. Um,
Sure.
which I thought, yeah, was like really hilarious.
It's real
But
life. I
anyway,
mean, if they shoot so
it's
close to
real.
each other, it's they'll kill.
Yeah,
Friendly
that's what's
fire.
gonna happen. Exactly. So you can see them, yeah,
Damn.
blasting each other. So I got to work on some kind of friendly fire mode. That way they don't inadvertently kill themselves
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
uh, during combat. But anyway, I thought
Yeah,
that was kind of funny.
that's cool.
Um,
Captain BluBlu says that's the absolute MVP right there.
yeah, the game plays itself. You just
That's cool.
you can just watch. Um, okay, let's see. What else did I add in here that I haven't talked about yet? Oh, the HUD. I'm working on a HUD. I still, surprisingly, you would think that the HUD compared to those other things we've just gone through would actually be really easy, but it's not. It's pretty complicated. Um, but what I've added for the HUD is you can see up in the top left here, I've got health
Mm-hmm.
and boost. The health doesn't do anything right now, but I've got a couple of things coded in to hopefully, when I do turn back on collision detection for the player, that it will detect like, oh hey, I just got hit by something, and it'll decrement the health a little bit. But what
Mm.
I did figure out how to do is if I hit the boost, it actually
Oh,
starts decrementing that. And it'll do it as long as I'm holding down the button. As soon as I stop, it stops depleting the boost charge. And then if I do it again, it starts going again. What I'd like to
uh,
do with that is have it deplete to 0,
sure,
and then once it
sure.
does, disable your boost. So then
Yeah,
you can't boost anymore. And then
yeah.
after a certain amount of time, have it recharge at a certain rate.
Or
Those
or it
things
it
are.
it only
Go ahead.
recharges if it only recharges if you destroy stuff, kind of like Mario from Overwatch.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but programming in those parameters is actually surprisingly tricky, or is much
Ah,
trickier than some of these other things.
sure, sure.
Especially anything that it has to do with like time and with like waiting, because it's weird. Like as somebody who's new to programming, and I think for like a lot of maybe outsiders would maybe have a similar perspective, is you would think that it would be really easy to program in just like, oh yeah, when this thing gets to 0, just wait like a second and a half and then start filling it up again.
Mm.
Um, but it's apparently really tricky with programming because certain like wait functions, uh, basically the way that the program and the computer handles like waiting, there's the danger of saying like, "Hey, I want you to wait for a second and a half when you get to this point," and the computer takes it so literally. The computer's like, "Oh, okay, great. Uh, I'm going to not run any of the other functions, any of the other things that I'm doing processing work on. I'm not going to do those for a second and a half. I'm just going to wait." So it's like almost like a full program shutdown where you're kind of like handing over control to this like one part of the code, and that code is like, all right, everybody, I'm in charge for a second and a half now. Nobody else can do anything,
Yeah.
and that can like break things. And so
Oh.
you have to program in these like much more complicated ideas where it's like, eh, tell like when you get to this point, tell the program or tell the function that called this function, hey, I'm going to give you back control. I'm going to yield control to you for this amount of time so you can keep running and doing your other things. Come back to me when that time is up.
Mm.
And I guess that's like a much safer way to do it. And that has something to do with like Unity coroutines, which I still don't completely understand. But apparently it's a much safer way to like hand to handle waits, because then you can still allow the rest of the program to keep running while this one thing is waiting for its turn to.
Sure.
Anyway, it's yeah, that's much more complicated, and I'm still working on figuring out how to do that, because
Yeah, yeah.
that piece is essential to like, hey, deplete the boost charge at this rate per second. When it stops, wait this many seconds before you charge again, and then when you do charge back up, recharge at this rate per second. So figuring out all of
Mm-hmm.
those things require all these like at least based on my own understanding of programming right now, those all require an ability to tell the program to wait for certain amounts of time
Right.
safely without breaking the rest of the program.
Right. Well, I'm
So
very grateful that you're the one that's figuring all this stuff out, because I would just go apeshit trying to figure. It's like, oh, I don't know how to do it. But yeah,
it's
thank you
wacky,
for,
man.
yeah, thank you for being patient and taking the time to learn all this. And by the way, I missed the comment from Captain Blue. before the absolute MVP right there comment, he actually said, health and damage, and you basically have a game now since there would be a fail state, and that's the absolute MVP right there. And then
Yeah,
he reminded me that I think you missed my earlier comment before the MVP minimal viable product. Yep, 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 yep. Thank you, Captain BluBlu. And yes, I did miss
yeah,
it. Sorry about that.
no problem. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's we are getting very, very close to this being an actual functioning game. Um, so anyway, I think that is it. I've got a couple of these other things here, but I'm not really sure what I was doing with that rail system. That might have been for
Yeah,
some other thing.
yeah.
Um,
When we have time, I would love to design the HUD for the
ooh,
kind of design something like some. I know you know that I hate doing graphics, but this is different. This is like a console graphic, so it's a little bit different.
yeah,
Yeah.
that would be great. Because yeah, right now, obviously what I have in there is just placeholder. It's just for me to be able to see like, can
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
send a number to the screen and have it update in real time?
Mhm. Mhm.
But yeah, we definitely want something much sexier. And
Yeah.
as you know, graphic design is near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I would love to spend some time with you working on
Yeah.
making a nice HUD system for us.
Yeah. I mean, you get all the functionality in there, and then after you're all done with it, the you get it up to a certain point that you really like it. I'll just take it and do some Photoshop on top of it, and then just make it look nice and sci-fi and sexy. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, give me a second. I'm gonna switch us to smoother text
Okay.
because I'm going to show you some stuff. I'm
And
going to
while
kind of
you're
like,
doing that, I will read what Captain Blue says. He says,
yes, please.
interesting paradox. I think instead of a built-in wait function, I would treat the wait timer as the boost itself, because then it could be in the same loop as the boost itself function even, but with the added if block within it or similar. Therefore, no wait switch. Just thinking out loud.
Uh, hmm. Well, hang on a second. Maybe because I thought I was with you there until you said, but no wait switch. Um, because one of the things that I've tried to do, I think it might be in here in boosters. So here's the code that I have so far for the booster, which really doesn't do much of anything except um, well, here I'll kind of walk you through what this says, and then I'll re reply to that because the way I have this programmed is I feel like I still need that that sort of like yield coroutine in order to program in the depletion rate.
Mm,
At least based on my understanding, like I don't know of another way to do this yet. And that's another thing that's interesting about computer programming. Quick side tangent here. Um, is there are like a million ways to solve the same problem,
sure,
depending
sure.
on the different pieces of oh, I know how to program the computer to do X. I know how to program the computer to do Y. I know how to program, you can take these different things that you've learned, kind of like what I had showed you earlier about the rail on rail system. That there's probably potentially a better, more efficient way to do that. But that is a way where I can take these two puzzle pieces that I know how they interact with each other and go
Mm,
pop them together and like, wow, look at that. It works.
mm,
It solves the problem that I had. Um, so I feel like, especially as a beginner, there's probably a whole bunch of things that I'm doing that a much more advanced programmer would look at and be like, why are you doing it that way? That's like the least optimal way to be doing that.
mm.
Um, but based on the very simple rudimentary pieces that I know how to play with, I can stick those things together and get them to do a thing. So anyway, um, in so this script right here is basically handling the boosters in the game. And these first couple of things up at the top here, these are all just like parameters or variables are that I'm using to handle what's going on. And basically,
Mhm.
those are just things that they're like little buckets or little boxes that keep track of like a number or an object or a thing. So the very first one up here is basically it's an integer. That's what the int stands for. Max charge is the name of it, and usually you want your names to be things that are indicative of what the thing is. That way, when somebody is looking at the code,
Sure.
you
Yeah.
can see like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I understand what that means. So
Yep.
obviously, max charge is 100. So you want that thing to be at 100%. Um, and then the charge depletion rate is actually a float, which was a weird thing for me when I started learning programming. Is like, what the hell is a float? And it stands for floating point integer or floating point number. Actually, not an integer. Um, and it's basically like you can think of a number with a decimal point in it.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Uh-huh.
that point can float, right? So if it's like 1.345 whatever, it's that point is up right after the 1. But it could also be, 12.3. So then it would float, from the 1 over to the 2 and can kind of like go, if you imagine just like a big fat number, that point can be anywhere in that number, right? You can have like a
Mm.
whole lot of digits in front of the point, a whole lot of digits after the point, whatever. So
All right.
that's kind of the reason why it's called floating point. So whenever you see float, that's what we're talking about. Basically just a number with a decimal point in it.
Mm.
But anyway, so the stuff that's up here is basically just uh, creating variables and then storing something in those variables. And then down here, these are different functions that are being called that do something with those variables. So the start function here is really all it's doing is just kind of setting up like, oh, when you hit play to start the game, here's what we want these different variables to be set to. Like, okay, the current charge should be set to the maximum charge. So if it was 0 or 80 or 50 or whatever it was before we hit play, we want to make sure when we hit play, we give the player a full tank of gas.
Mm.
So that's kind of what that's doing. And then update is basically every single frame of the game, it's doing whatever's in here. And what it's doing in here is I'm saying if the player is pressing down the left shift key, do what's inside these brackets. And what's inside those
Boost.
brackets is it says process boost. Like, okay, well, what the
Boost.
heck's process boost? Well, that's this function down here. And what does that
Uh-huh.
do? Well, it takes the current charge and it decrements it by 1. And then it takes the HUD and the HUD actually has its own function called update boost charge. And so I'm basically just saying like, hey, update the HUD with what the current charge is because we just decremented it by 1. So it was 100, now it's 99. Make sure in the HUD display we update that. So that's what that guy's doing. Now what my plan is to have I'll write some pseudocode here. Was to do something like, wait, don't autofill for me, please. Wait 1.5 seconds. So that way, it will wait before it decrements it by 1 again. Because right now, it's decrementing by 1 every single frame. So, and the only way that I can control that is if I did like a time dot delta time thing, which I guess I could do time dot delta time and then multiply that by. Sorry, I'm thinking out loud, solving this
Sure, sure,
problem
sure,
in
sure,
real
sure.
time. I could
Yeah.
do time dot delta time times a like a multiplier, like 0.3 or whatever, and then it would do every third of a second. It would decrement by 1. So actually, yeah, I think I could do that.
Mm.
But anyway, the idea being is that inside that process boost, I would want to set some kind of weight so that way so I could control how quickly the charge depleted. And there is a function that there's sort of like a coroutine thing where you can say like, hey, uh, I don't need to keep running right now, so I'm going to hand control back over to the sort of like the main program, if you will. Come back
Mhm.
to me in a second and a half, and then I'll keep going. And then you can kind of just keep doing that. I can just keep uh, running that update. But I haven't completely figured out how to do that yet. But anyway, so with that said, I think what Captain BluBlu was referring to might have been something along those lines of like inside that code, maybe doing the time dot delta time
Mm.
thing. Because if I do that, then I don't have to build in like the wait coroutine. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm gonna play with it and I'll get back to you. But good point, Captain Blue, because that's definitely, I think even just now in real time is kind of giving my brain a new way of thinking about how to solve this problem.
Yeah, and he says,
Um,
very true. No way is the only correct way. I think he's talking about the comment you said about, there are a million ways to do one thing. And I
mm,
myself, not a trained programmer either, so I come up with a salt mine with my input, a
yeah,
bit of salt.
thank
Yep,
you. Keep
yep,
the
yeah,
suggestions coming because they're really helpful, actually.
yeah. Thank you, Captain
Uh,
BluBlu.
yeah. Um, and then yeah, a couple of the other things in here. I'm not gonna go through in like great detail all of this stuff because I don't know how interesting that would be to get like super in the weeds with the programming stuff. But if that is interesting to you, let me know and maybe I'll add that to my own separate stream at some point whenever I get that up and running. Then we can do some like real meaty
Mm, mm.
uh, programming in the weeds walkthroughs. Um, but anyway, I added a couple more scripts for different things, like the gate. Like here's some things to program
Oh, that's the
the
gate.
gate
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Uh-huh.
the look-see thing. Oh yeah, so this is the thing that was really crazy. Is like this single line of code is all it took to get the enemy drone to track the player because it
Uh-huh.
turns out there's a function built into Unity called look at,
Uh,
and you basically just say like, hey, this game object, make it look at, and then within the parentheses you just tell it what to look at, and so you just say
target
like, oh.
transform.
And what I did here is I told it basically to look at the target, and it's like, okay, well, what's the target? Well, in this serialized field, if I go back to Unity and
Oh, yeah.
click on the drone, over here in the look-see script, you can see the target, and I've set
It's
it
a
to the
player
player
ship.
ship.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Yep.
I could set it to any other actual object. So if I
Right.
took like this random drone over here and
Mm-hmm.
dragged him into the, well, this guy doesn't have the look see script, but if I drag this
Right.
other random drone in here, well then that drone would look at that guy instead. He would
Right.
target him, shoot
That's
him out of
cool.
the sky.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So and that was so this is a great segue. That was something that I actually learned from the other Unity game that I've made since we last talked, which is this game called Realm Rush. And
Cool.
before I,
Nice.
yeah, before I dive into that, any questions on the sort of rail shooter game? I guess before I jump out of here, any
No, I
questions
think
from you, Chris, or from the chat, or
no, I think
all
that's
good?
that's great, man. Just keep, experimenting and, trying stuff out. I love the the bad guy on your rail, and he's basically doing like an oval, spin on your rail. And
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking like, what if it's a figure eight? What if it was a bigger, larger
Mm.
figure eight or something? And then within
Mm-hmm.
that figure eight, you'll have like five different, you know, five different oval rails on that figure eight, and then within theirs it's just, parents of a parent of a parent. It could get pretty wild,
Yeah.
man.
Oh my God, yeah. At
That's
some
pretty
point,
cool.
it's like some kind of crazy, Rube Goldberg machine that's
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
all this wild. But it's like,
That's pretty
hey,
cool.
it doesn't have to conform to the practicality of real life,
Right,
um,
right. Yeah,
because it's just a computer program. So you can just say like, oh yeah, just turn gravity off for that thing. That thing doesn't
yeah,
have to have physics applied to it. Like, oh
yeah.
wow, that's pretty nuts. So,
That's cool,
yeah,
man. Good, good job,
definitely
Michael.
have some fun with that at some point.
Yeah. And Captain Blue
Um,
says something like that. I am doing a pseudo code right now to illustrate what I meant. Could I share it with you? Could I share it if you would like to take a look?
yeah,
Michael,
of course.
would you like to take a look? Yeah, go ahead, Captain BlueBlue. Either paste it in the chat or in Discord.
Yeah, and then yeah, as soon as you've got that, let me know and we'll pull it up on screen.
Yeah.
Um, in the meantime, So the game here, probably the best way to I'm gonna just hit play here. This game is like not as like action oriented or fast paced as the rail shooter, so I think it might be okay in this. Well, actually, no, I am gonna switch
Readability.
to
Oh,
yeah,
oh,
just because there are a couple of things that you might not be able to see happening if it's only 5 frames per second. It's a tower defense game.
nice.
And so you've got these like little enemies here that are coming out of the enemy castle, and they are traveling over to our hero
Tense.
castle.
Cute.
Uh, and it's a little hard to see in the well, yeah, it's probably way too hard to see because it's small. I might need to make that bigger,
Oh, the
actually.
gold.
Uh, yeah, can you see that the gold down there?
I can see it. However, the way it's positioned, our what is it? Oh, there you go. There you go.
Is that better?
Awesome. Yep, yep. We can see it now. Yep. There's gold.
Okay. And actually, in real time here, I'm just going to adjust that so that way we can um,
Oh,
do,
interesting.
do,
Oh,
I'll
cool.
make this bigger. Let's go over here. How about 64? Actually, maybe even bigger than that. How about 80? And then that. And how does that look? That's better. Still not big enough, but anyway, yeah, in the bottom left here, you can see we've got gold, and basically when the enemy units get into our castle, they steal gold.
No,
And if we
no.
get down to 0, then the we lose, the game
Oh,
resets, and yeah, so we're toast. If I hit replay though, because we're close to death, I can click anywhere on the map, and it starts to build
ooh,
these little ballista turrets, which will then shoot at these enemy
cool,
units. And if
cool.
they kill one, hopefully,
Oh,
it'll
you
add
get
money to
gold.
my gold supply.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and really that's it. Like that's the extent of what this game is. There are a couple other things like under the hood that are interesting, but as far as like the game is concerned, um, that's the game. You've got these enemies that are kind of moving into the castle over here. I'm gonna make a couple of changes in here to, let's see, is it the bank starting balance? I'll give us a whole lot of money, 5,000 gold. Um, and I'll hit play again
Oh, yeah,
and
money,
kind of
money,
walk through
money.
a couple of things. If I hit one of the buttons here, there's like a debugging menu.
Oh, uh-huh.
You can see this grid that has come up
Oh,
on the screen.
sure, 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 sure.
The orange colors, so the basically the yellow colors, it is detecting that, ooh, that is a tile that the that I can that is walkable, if you will, by the enemy. So the enemy can actually move on that space.
Right.
And the orange is it detecting the shortest path to get to the destination. And that path can actually change dynamically. So if I put a turret right here, well, it
Oh,
recalculated the path, and so now the
interesting.
enemies will move. And then if I do another
Interesting.
one here, same thing. So now it's like recalculating, and I can put another one here, and now they're completely blocked off here. Ooh, this actually
What
might.
happens?
Oh
What
nope.
happens if you put it right in front of the entrance
Uh, Good question.
and also the exit?
Well, he just drives over that one. I guess nothing. But if I
Oh, he
put it
just
in
goes.
front of it, though,
Yeah. What if
oh,
you put it in front?
well,
Um.
nope.
Oh.
We're
Oh.
finding bugs in real
Oh.
time.
Oh no.
No, that's fantastic. Um, well, if I was making this into like an actual final shippable thing, then yeah, we
Yeah.
would need to fix this.
Right. Right. Right.
Um, it
That's
de-
cool. Nice.
it's supposed to have been programmed to like not let you place units if it blocks the path, but because it's still like able to get there because it's like going through. I guess what I would need to do is I would need to tell it that these tiles that are underneath the castle are actually not walkable. because you can
Uh,
see that they're just like driving through.
yeah,
They're just like not colliding with the
right.
castle box collider.
Yeah.
But anyway, what was really
Cool.
cool about this tutorial was really half the tutorial was just writing the algorithm for having the enemy units find the path and follow the path.
Right.
Because originally, in the first half of the tutorial, we'd created an actual path in the game where, like, if I go, let me get out of 2D and zoom in on the environment, and I'm gonna hide this canvas. Oh, whoops. Canvas. Hide. We have these tile pieces in here for like roads, so you could actually like if I delete this guy and grab this one, you can put like these road pieces in here, right?
Mm. Mhm.
Um, and so we had originally had it programmed where the units could only move on the road pieces.
Mm.
So road corner 270, is that the right? Yeah, that's the right one. I'm not going to build a whole road path in here, but it'd basically be like that, where you have a road moving from the enemy castle to the player's castle, and then the road you could not place turrets down on, and the enemies would only travel on the road. So that's another
Mhm.
way to do
Mhm.
it, which then doesn't require that complicated and buggy algorithm. But yeah, so that's one thing. The other thing that's really cool, which you may have noticed, is um, the tiles actually update the coordinates themselves. So when I move this tile, so this tile is currently labeled as 9.2. If I move it over here, then it changes to
Oh,
10.2.
yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing it's doing is you'll notice that this, uh, well, actually, am I in smoother readability or better text readability or smoother
Y-
video? Are you able to see
You're
the
smooth.
text? Is that okay?
You're in the smooth. But I mean, I could
Okay.
tell that it's like 10-2, 11-2, 12-2.
Okay. I'm gonna switch real
Oh,
quick. Shouldn't take too
okay.
long. Boost, better text readability, and back to Unity.
Wow, much
So
better.
hopefully that's yeah. Um, so yeah, so when I move this tile, he's changing from 9.2 to
Mhm.
10.2. And the other thing he's doing is in the hierarchy, it's his name's actually changing too. So when I move it over
Yeah.
here, you can see it's relabeling.
Yeah, that's
Um,
nice.
that's not super like none of that's helpful for the like in-game stuff. But for programming it, like that's really crazy and amazing. I didn't know that you could actually do that. That you could program in things that would change dynamically what is appearing in the editor to help you.
Mhm.
The other thing that's really cool, it's probably hard to tell, is that there is a grid system in here, and so everything is snapping perfectly to line up in that grid. Um, and that's just like a built-in thing with Unity where you can kind of like up here, you can change the grid size. But the way it's set up right now is it's perfectly aligned to the size of the different tiles. And so then they just snap to the axis or the axes, I guess,
Mhm.
of
Yeah.
the grid. Um, yeah. So anyway, this was the most recent Unity project that I was working on, and
Mhm.
learned a lot of cool things in this. Many of which kind of like came over to help with the rail shooter. One of which was the targeting system that the turrets use when they're looking at the enemies. That is where I learned
Look,
the
see.
look at. Yeah,
Oh, look at.
exactly.
Yeah. Do
Um,
you mind turning on the grid really quick?
oh, sure.
I noticed the tree, uh the numbers for 12, 12, 4. That's gray compared to the yellow and
Correct.
um orange.
Yes,
Interesting. Yeah.
good eye. That is because the tree tile is designated as not walkable. So if I click here out of the game, right now I've got our, let me go here. I've got our 9.2 tile selected, and
Mhm.
you'll
Mhm.
see over here under the tile script, there is a check, a tick mark for is
Ah,
placeable, and that
uh-huh.
just means like, hey, can I actually put towers here? Is this a place where it both stands for like, can I place a tower there, and can the enemy move across that spot?
Right.
But if I click into like the ocean over here, you'll notice that it's unticked.
Oh
And
yeah,
so
right.
for the tiles with trees on them, uh, actually, I'm actually selecting the tree there. There we go. Now I've got the tile underneath the
Nice.
tree. Is
Yep.
placeable as unchecked.
Yep.
If I turn it on and we go back into the game, you'll see that now it's detecting it as just any other tile. So I can actually get the
Sure.
enemies
Walk
to
through the
now
tree.
go through the tree.
Yeah.
But
Cool.
the other set of trees, yeah, is still set to not
Hmm.
placeable.
You have total
So,
control of creating barriers and walkable
mhm,
areas. Nice.
exactly. Um, so yeah, so there was a whole lot of cool stuff that I learned in this. Several things already came over to help with the rail shooter,
Hmm.
including a
Hmm.
couple of things in here with the like the broadcast message and the listener and the look at target. Um, and probably one of the other things that was really crazy about this tutorial was learning how to get the different scripts to talk to each other. So if I go into like the grid manager here, where is my grid manager? Pathfinding? Yeah, there we go. So I'm gonna open this up. Um, so oh, my computer's crashing here. Do I still have you?
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
still
great.
here. We still see you.
Okay, my computer like freaked out for a second and everything like blinked away. Um, so in the maybe grid managers, maybe Pathfinder's a little bit better. No, actually, it's even more complicated. Maybe Node? Yeah. Well, actually, this is a little bit too much in the weeds, and I don't think it's going to be all that exciting for folks. But basically, uh, to kind of like recap and summarize, some of the things that I learned in here is how to get the different scripts to like be visible to other scripts, so that way when I have like in the rail shooter, the player ship, there's a way for me to write code on the player ship object that allows it to identify other objects and do
Mm.
things with them. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know
Mm-hmm.
how to do that before. Now that I know how to do that, that's one of the reasons why I was able to get the gate trigger to work, to
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
working, and to
Cool.
now trigger other things. So, yeah. Anyway, um, that is about it for my update.
Nice. Good.
I'm
Good
gonna
job,
stop
man.
that.
Oh, close
Thank
screen.
you. Hopefully that was interesting and helpful.
Yeah. No. Again,
Wow,
I
my
mean,
computer is freaking
it
out.
it might seem not as interesting, but it is what makes the engine tick. I mean, it's what makes the game work, and without it, it's not an interesting game without it, right? Captain
Right.
Captain Blue says, "Oh, possible strategy game from Tavern's next game." He's talking about the tower defense game. Maybe that could be our next
Oh
game
yeah.
later on. He says it was cool to see. Yeah, yeah, it was. Thank you so much, Michael, for showing that to us.
Sure. My pleasure. Um, yeah, very possible. So one of the things that was cool about doing that was we have talked about potentially doing a mobile game, and so a tower defense game might be a perfect choice for that. And now we know
Mm-hmm.
I've got the basic foundation to be able to make one of those. Um, if you can you give me 1 second, Chris? When I said like, oh, that was weird, my computer like blinked and it did a
Of
weird
course.
thing. My Discord is like completely jangled and I can't see anything, so I'm gonna
Oh no.
close it and
Okay,
be
yeah.
back in like 30 seconds.
Okay, yeah, sure. Take your time.
All right,
And I will
be right back.
chat with BluBlu really quick. Blue says I have the mock-up, but it would have to be in several pics, two or so. It is in a graph node programming form. Oh, I don't know what that is, but yeah, go ahead and send it, and I will share it once you send it, either in Discord or in the chat. And obviously, I think Michael will appreciate your hey, welcome back, your picks, um, and maybe we can learn something from you. Yeah. But yeah, let us know.
Okay, I'm gonna save that. Okay, I think I fixed that, and now I'm just gonna shut some things down so it's not bogging down my system.
Ah, now it's this week is your computer that's having tech issues. Ah, ha, ha, ha. It's not just
No.
me anymore. I know it sucks, man. Totally sucks. Blah.
Let's see here. Yes. Hmm. Are we pulling up Captain BluBlu's code
Uh,
idea?
I haven't received anything yet,
Oh, okay.
so
So
yeah,
continue.
yeah. Let's go ahead and keep going.
All right. So to recap, in our table of contents, I was going to give you the rail shooter update,
Mm,
which I did. I was going to show you the game dev TV tutorial update, which I did. And the final thing was the sort of like, hey, what does the future hold? Because last time we had looked at a schedule and we're like, whoa, felt like we had a lot more time, but turns out we don't. We're going to need to spend a whole lot of hours on a daily basis between
mm,
now and September to actually get this thing done. Is that really
mm,
what we want to do? Do we potentially want to look at maybe pushing the game into 2023? And have and me, have me focus on this, my writing and the second edition of Blockbuster Blueprint and the audiobook and all this stuff. And we had kind of gone away from last session, or at least I was kind of feeling like, oh yeah, I feel pretty convinced. That's probably the right thing to do. But let me chew on it, let me think about it, and let me get back to you, and maybe look at sort of like a revised schedule of what that would look like. Um, I didn't do the revised schedule, and the reason for that is because I actually feel really strongly about sticking with the rail shooter. I think it's the most important thing that I'm doing right now. I really feel a strong commitment to wanting to get this thing done.
mhm, mhm,
Um, I think my book and writing stuff can wait, and I'm not gonna like abandon it or anything. It's just I'm gonna put it on the shelf for now. And basically, I really think that I want to put everything on the shelf except this. This is the thing that I want to commit um, myself and my time to as my number one priority. And part of the reason for that, well, I mean, there are a lot of reasons for that, uh, but I think one of the, and I guess I'll just talk about a couple of those. One is, for me personally and like professionally, this is the most ambitious personal project I've ever done. Um, Prior to this, I would say the most ambitious personal project was getting the first book uh,
mhm,
re- released. Like that was, man, writing a book is really hard,
mm.
and pushing it out the door is even harder.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
that that was tough. But this is on a whole other level. Like I'm having to push myself to learn and to grow in ways that are more challenging than anything else I've ever done, and that's great. That is something I feel like I need to lean into and I need to move towards. Um, So that's one reason. Another reason is in terms of like our conscious or like cognizance of like, hey, you're unemployed. Like we need to make sure that you've got some kind of income coming in, Michael. I'm okay for now. I have had intentionally planned my finances in such a way that I would have, some financial runway, some time where I could do stuff like this and not worry about having to have a job or an income. So I'm still fine there. Like I don't need to get something going right away. Like I mean, hey, don't get me wrong, money would be nice.
Yes.
It would be great to have some kind of income, but I'm okay for now. But on that topic, one of the things that could really alleviate some of that pressure is, hey, if I spend this time learning computer programming, then I can get to a point where like, hey, I've got this in-demand, very valuable skill where I can then freelance or, use that to fall back onto like, hey, I'm going to go back into the employment world.
Sure.
Um, so there it was like, okay, that makes a lot more sense than focusing on writing from a primary perspective, because writing I feel is it's kind of a, whereas with like computer programming you can look at it as sort of like a bell curve in the middle where there's a certain lump sum average where it's like my like income prospects for that have a pretty, like there's a high degree of confidence that it's going to fall in this category. Like you can look at the salaries for computer programmers that tend to fall like at least this high and can go like as big as this. And so it kind of looks like, this bell curve distribution.
Hmm.
Writing is more like two towers on either side, where the overwhelming majority of people who do writing make no money at all. You have to do it because you love it, but you're never going to make enough money to support yourself. But there's a couple of people of this tiny number, like maybe 1% of writers who are crazy successful. They're the like J.K. Rowlings and the Stephen Kings, and those people are making like millions and millions of dollars. So there's like this huge spike over here, but there really isn't anything in the middle. Um, and so there's a certain amount of like, granted, I'm doing both of these things from a place of like personal passion and interest. So, the if money was of no object, then I would just continue doing both of these things.
Sure.
But because money is an object, and I do have to
Hmm.
be cognizant of it, I got to think about these things.
Yeah. Yep.
And so the writing piece of it, I think, has the potential to be like this lottery ticket where if I can write something really crazy successful, then I'll be in that camp of people who are like, oh yeah, man, I made way more money writing than I could ever make as like a computer programmer. Uh, but getting there is going to take some time. It's going to take either some combination of time and luck. And I would err on that taking more than the couple years that I have to to play with my time.
Hmm. Hmm.
Probably closer to like 10 years to really, make it as uh, an, a known branded author. Whereas with like computer programming, no matter how amazing of a computer programmer you are, very unlikely that you'll ever be pulling in like a J.K. Rowling income, right? But also very unlikely that you're ever going to be in a position where you, like a lot of amateur or hobbyist writers, where you're like, oh yeah, you just can't get paid for that. Like, just you're not going to make any money. Like, nah, computer programming is really in demand. They're like every company wants an app, and so there's just
Right.
yeah. Anyway, all of that is just a very practical look at why I think it's if we're purely just talking about like what's the most responsible, financially responsible thing for me to do with my time, I think there's a strong argument for sticking with the computer programming stuff.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that was another thing that I kind of considered.
Nice.
And the final thing, the final piece of the puzzle that really like cinched it for me was how I think beyond like what this means to me and beyond what it what is the like fiscally responsible thing for me to be doing with my time, I think this is really meaningful beyond me to do this. And one of the for you, Chris, and for the Creative Tavern, and for the folks in our chat, and anybody who's watching this in the future, because one of the things that I thought would be really cool, I'm going to share one more thing with you, is I went back through. Chris and I have been exchanging messages for a while, and I found our like the what I think is the oldest or the earliest record that I have of a text exchange between Chris and I
Ooh.
that led to us doing the Creative Tavern. And at this time, this was back September 22nd of 2021. So this was last year.
Yeah.
And Chris and I had kind of like, up to that point, we'd kind of just been hanging out playing Overwatch together, and then we would chat about what we were doing. And in some of those conversations, I think we had kind of maybe mentioned something about like, hey, maybe we should do something. And in this conversation, I think this is the oldest record that I have where that seed was planted, and and basically what you're seeing here is like Chris had shared an update. I think this was your tarot cards. Unfortunately, I
Mm.
couldn't get the download to happen, but you kind of like so Chris is in gray and I'm in blue, and Chris and I were kind of joking about how you can tell which one of us is which just by the like the writing style.
Yeah, yeah.
um, but so Chris kind of shared this update of the, I think it was the tarot cards, and I was like, oh man, these are great. Like they're looking really awesome. And hey, makes me want, to see a card game for you to draw art for, like
Yeah.
Magic the Gathering kind of a thing. And Chris was
Yeah.
like really excited about it. Like, yeah, I'm totally down for that. Like we should do a game like Catan. We could always do a Kickstarter. And I was
Yeah.
like, that would be awesome. I have an idea. And I think to like start small. I think we can do like a deck of cards and make a game out of that. Um, anyway, let me noodle this a bit and I'll pitch you something. And then Chris is like, sweet, great, can't wait to hear it. He was really excited.
Mm. Mm.
And that led to the very first design meeting that we had, which is, you're seeing a publicly broadcasted version of that. But the very first design session that we had, I had done some sketches and I kind of pitched Chris this idea for this card game.
Do you have it
And
on with you?
actually, yeah, I can step away for like 1 second and I'll
Oh.
I'll
Oh.
share that with you. Hang on one
Yeah.
second.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, usually Michael and I chat in Overwatch, and we always talk about doing something together because both of us, we're not really 100% employed by anyone, so we're like we should come up with something, and oh man, this was like the first thing that we came up with, and it took various turns, and then now we're actually doing a rail shooter. So yeah, I'm curious what you will show then, Michael. This is cool.
Sure. All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing that way my video gets a little bit bigger. And my can hopefully my camera doesn't like blur this stuff out too much, but you can see here, this was like one of the first sketches that I drew where I was like, hey, I kind of think it would be cool if, we had this card with like some cool artwork here, and then very much like a Magic the Gathering or like a Hearthstone type of card with like, oh, and then the stats are down here, and this is like a monster that you're fighting, and then like on this sketch right here, you can, if I can get it to focus, like a couple different types of cards in there. The idea behind this card game being that it would be sort of like a Hearthstone adventure style kind of a card game where you like playing these cards and
Hmm.
going on
Hmm.
this like kind of adventure. But anyway, so I'd kind of done a couple of these sketches and showed them to Chris and kind of pitched my idea for like, here's how I think the game could work. And then we started working on that and went down this long rabbit hole for many months actually of trying to figure out how to get a board game to work. But long story for another time, we eventually ended up on the rail shooter. But what what really cinched the decision for me was looking back at that and saying September 22nd of 2021. And we've got earmarked tentatively September of 2022 for this beta. Wouldn't it be cool if we had a fully functioning beta by September 22nd of 2022? So then we could say, hey, in 1 year, we went from having nothing, having never done this before, having no idea what we were doing, no product, no nothing, just a hope and a dream and
Mm.
a can do attitude to come together and collaborate. And wouldn't it be amazing if that resulted in, hey, look, this is what we were able to do, just two guys basically working out of a virtual garage uh, could do in a year. And if we could do
Yeah.
it, you could do it too. And that idea is more meaningful to me than any of the other individual components. The sum of those things I think is really important to me, and I want to give everything I can to make that happen. So the decision that I kind of came away from after last week was, yes, I could step away and work on, my own stuff, but this is the most important thing to me right now, and I really want to
Mm.
do
Mm.
this. So
Mm. Mm.
I would like to commit to this. And if that sounds good to you, Chris, because this is definitely a partnership. This is a team
Yeah,
effort thing. Um, what do you think?
it definitely I respect your decision and I will back your decision up and you're being very very selfless in choosing this our game over your book because for me I would want you to be more selfish and taking taking your book and running with it, but I also see the benefits of learning programming because that is more or less the responsible thing to do down the future if you want decide to do programming because like you said there's like the two ends of writing it's either you're an amateur writer or you're a Stephen King, J.K. Rowling. So I mean that's a huge gap, right? But I still think you can do it because you're a very very talented writer, man, and I want you to do it. I want you to be there. I want you to be the next Stephen King and J.K. Rowling and the amazing authors because you do write very well. So I want you to achieve that dream. I want to be very selfish and see you achieve that dream. But with that said, yeah, man, if that is your um passion about designing video games, I am totally down with it. And let's make the best game we can. And Michael, I don't know if you saw on screen, without your permission, I accidentally opened up the Sidewinder card because
Oh, cool.
I want to ask you, is it okay if I show the
Yeah, yeah,
people the
yeah.
Sidewinder thingy that I made? All right, so
Hell
I'm
yeah.
gonna put this here. Uh, Actually, if I just do this, I just put that right there. So, and Michael, you'll probably see it on screen a little
Sure.
bit later if you're streaming the show. So this was a combination of Michael's design ideas and me putting my uh, illustration ability together along with Michael's designs. We came up with this like really really quick um, card game, and it's not done, it's not complete. It's just something that we were playing around with. And I did the illustration, and then Michael did all the cool text below, and the game design, right? And then came, even though I said I hate doing graphic design, it was still a lot of fun creating these borders and little icons and just placement for all the text and everything. Boy, it's hard. I still hate it. I don't like it. I just don't like it. It's just so hard. Ah, blah, blah, blah. But it was a lot of fun doing this with Michael, and yeah, I definitely want us to continue on doing something like this, and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully we can come up with a card game, our own Magic the Gathering, our own Hearthstone, in the future, right? Because it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and coming up with this creature, and you coming up with a gameplay and all the armor and the health and yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a good, great sense of balance between the both of us, and I totally enjoyed this as well.
Yeah, I love that card so much.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, that's reminding me too, like that could be the next project, because that would also work really well for mobile. Um,
Mm, 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 mm.
and yeah, I still have a lot of love for that project and ideas for it. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah, yeah. And I guess Michael, I wanted to talk really quick about last week. You brought up, or you sent me this game called Course,
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
right? And then
Yeah.
yesterday I stumbled upon a video game called Imperial. Oh, I'm sorry, Infinite Galaxy. And
Mm-hmm.
and the reason why I'm bringing it up is because when I watched those two different games, they are very very similar to the game that we are designing, and I felt super discouraged seeing how beautiful and how polished and how amazing those games looked. It made me feel like shit. It made me feel like, well, if they already done it, why the hell am I doing this? Why are we spending our time doing this? And so I had to kind of take a step back and be like, well, you know, me and Michael were doing this just the two of us, right? We never done it before, and they had their whole. I'm sure they had like a big team, and they had a lot of funding and a lot of time and skilled people who has experience making these kind of games. Whereas Michael and I never created a video game before. And while I have experience designing theme parks, and while I've worked as a concept artist at a video game company, I never created, you know, digital assets like 3D assets and the environment and the level and all the animation, all that other stuff, right? So there's a lot to learn. And so after taking a step back, I had to tell myself it's not really about comparing ourselves with others at this point or competing against those amazing companies and which they have a lot of talented people which I totally respect. Right now is just finishing a project that me and you, like Michael and I, you both of us, we kind of started, and is to just do a great job and do it to the best of our ability. And I know, Michael, I've explained this to you before our show, and I shared with you how discouraged I was seeing how beautiful those two games were, and I'm just like, ah, man. But that's not to say we can't do it, right? It's just I know it's a really huge, steep hill to climb, but we can get there as long as we fight hard enough and work and concentrate hard enough to do it. But yeah, Michael, you said you had some thoughts you wanted to share with me and the chat, so that
For sure.
make me feel a little bit better.
I hope so. I'll do my best.
All right,
I'm putting on my like producer pep talk hat now.
all right.
Um, because I think that topic is extremely relevant to creative professionals and creative amateurs. Anybody doing creative work, you're going to run into that very early and continuously the entire time you're spending any amount of energy in creative endeavor, you're going to run into the comparison. And it's either going to be you're going to do it yourself, you're going to look at other people who are amazing. Like I'm reminded of much, much earlier, there was a point in time where I was like, oh man, I'd love to be an animator because I love animated movies, like animated shorts, animated features. Animation is possible. Like if you asked me to pick the like ultimate art form, I might say animation. I'm yeah. But so there was a point in time where, and I've since moved on. Like I don't want to be an animator anymore because I know like the nitty gritty of like what that takes. But I still really appreciate animation and animators and want to do something with animation. I just don't want to be. I know I'm not fit to be the one actually doing the animation. Um, but there was a time when I was like, oh man, I want to be an animator, and then I would like watch Tarzan and see like the way Glenn Keane animated this character and be like, oh my, I can't do that. I'm never going to be
Mm-hmm.
that good.
Mm,
Um, so there are times when you can do that where you can, and this is kind of the case that you run into, Chris, where you like saw these other guys who are making a space genre uh, starfighter type video game and going like, wow, those look really good. And that
yeah,
looks way better than anything that we're doing
so
right now.
good, so good.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's also times where somebody else will compare you to some other professional. And that hurts too. I mean, I've had times where I pitched a story that I was working on to somebody that I was like really excited about, like, oh my gosh, yeah, it's gonna, here's what the story is, and like it's gonna be so cool, and I was inspired by this thing and that thing, and I'm putting them together, and I'm really excited about it. And then they just go like, oh, that's like such and such, like, oh, that's already been done before, and that's so deflating to hear. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and the the advice, the pep talk that I would give to anybody in that situation is twofold. One, it's unfair to make comparisons to people who've been doing it for many many decades or who have huge teams of people, uh, because there's no way that you as an individual or even you and your buddy, like me and Chris, just two people working on a thing, there's no way that you can compete with big teams of people or big corporations who have a lot of funding and a lot of time. And even if you're amazing, even if you're like the best in the world at a thing, you're not going to be able to compete with a team of like 30 other artists who are mid tier because
Mm.
their teamwork, their combined effort, there's just no way that you can possibly do that much in like you can't possibly do that same workload in a day. You can't possibly bring that much experience to bear because if you've been doing your thing for let's say 40 years, you've been doing this thing for a long time, you're one of the best in the world. That's 40 years of experience.
Mm.
If you've got the team of like 30 people who've all been doing it for let's say 5 years apiece, that's 60 years of experience
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
collectively among them. And like so you couldn't possibly, and that's just 30 people at 5 years. um Granted, that's not an apples to apples comparison, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Doing these kind of like one-sided comparisons just don't make sense. But our lizard brain, the part of our brain that loves to like judge us and to try to point things out, our flaws, loves that shit.
Yeah.
Loves
Yep.
comparing things and being like,
Yep.
look at that. Just give up now. That way we can go back to being lazy and not putting
Yep.
ourselves out there and
Yep.
being at risk.
Yep.
And you got to tell that lizard brain, like, hey, man, you need to take a chill pill. You can't do this. Like, that is a completely unfair comparison. I understand you're scared, but it's going to be okay. And the other thing to keep in mind, and this maybe applies especially when you get that negative feedback about like, oh yeah, that's been done before. Like, oh,
Mhm.
why bother?
Mm.
The reason to bother is because, sure, that story may have been told already. Somebody may have drawn that already. Maybe somebody else has already made a cute character, or whatever it is you're doing. But nobody's done it the way you're going to do it.
Mhm. Mhm.
You are a once in the entirety of the existence of the universe case of this unique combination of experiences and interests and skills in this particular moment in time, and how you decide to tell a story or make a piece of art is going to be completely unique, and there's going to be somebody out there who's going to benefit more from your version than anybody else's.
Mm.
So, and human beings are, we're constantly just like recombining. Like the creative process is not to like actually create something that has never been done before. It's just to recombine things, and it's to
Sure.
recombine things in your unique way.
Sure.
And in in doing so, you are basically like so. The point of all that is really just to say that you can't be discouraged by like, oh, it's been done before, because it's never been done before the way you would do it. You when you look at something like storytelling, for example, you look at a movie like Avatar, you could say like, oh, that story's been done a million times. Like,
Mhm.
typical civilized white guy goes native.
Yeah.
You see that with, in Disney's Pocahontas with John
Mhm.
Smith. Like,
Mhm. Mhm.
you see that in Dances with Wolves with Kevin Costner going out into the Native American wilderness and becoming
The Last Samurai.
the last samurai. Yeah, exactly. It's over and over and over again. And yet, uh, it doesn't feel derivative. All of those stories feel completely different because they're told by unique filmmakers and creators who have a unique perspective. Um, and so don't let that pesky lizard brain discount the uniqueness that you're going to bring and the way that you're going to do it, that is by its very nature going to be unique in the world.
Mm.
Um, and it doesn't have to be, from your perspective, it doesn't have to be better or as good as so and so's or such and such's, because the way that you're going to do it, it's going to resonate with somebody, and somebody's going to go, yeah, sure. The Wizard of Oz has been told 100 times by all these different people, but the one that I really like is, this version that like, I think Todd McFarlane did like a comic book series that was like this twisted version of the Wizard of Oz or whatever. For some reason, that's bubbling up into my brain, and that's probably somebody's favorite version of the Wizard of
Sure.
Oz.
Sure.
Not necessarily mine, but he could have approached that and said, like, you know what, I'm not going to do this. It's already been done to death. So many people have done the Wizard of Oz.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so yeah. Anyway, I'm getting off my soapbox now. That's all just to say comparisons are pernicious because you're gonna make that comparison and feel like it's valid, and it's not. It's completely
Yeah.
illogical if you put yourself in the perspective of like somebody else, like a friend, giving you the advice. You're gonna realize like, oh yeah, that is a totally unfair comparison. How can I, a 12-year-old kid who's got a dream of becoming an animator, how could he
Mhm.
possibly? How is it possibly fair to compare his skill level to Glenn Keane, one of the best animators who's ever existed, and who's done it for God knows how many years, and has professional training and has worked in the industry in a very professional capacity. Like
Yeah.
that's an unfair comparison. Um, anyway, sorry, I'm rambling at this point, but yeah, when you mentioned that earlier, I was like, that's a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah.
I need to get on my soapbox for this one. So thank you for uh,
Yeah, no.
for
Thank you, man. Thank you for giving me some encouragement in that. And fun fact, while I was still at Walt Disney Imagineering, I was involved in a prayer group, kind of like a Christian community prayer group.
mhm.
And little did I know, Glenn Keane is a huge Christian, and I had no idea, right? And then so in that prayer group, they're like, "Oh yeah, we have this special guest coming in on something something date. I don't remember anymore." And then it's like, "Oh, and it's going to be Glenn Keane." I'm like, "Glenn Keane, Glenn Keane. That
That
sounds so
sounds familiar.
familiar." Yeah, and then so I looked him up. I was like, "Oh God, it's Tarzan guy. It's Little Mermaid guy. Is he's?" And then I went to the prayer meeting and I met the dude, the nicest guy ever, and he shared a very very special moment with me. I asked him to pray for me, to pray that to ask God to give me like special magical art skills or something. Obviously, God can only bless you so much or bless me so much. If I don't work at it, obviously I'm not going to obtain the skill necessary. But I have a picture somewhere in my computer of him praying for me, and obviously and just took a selfie with him. And it was really cool knowing that this amazing artist is a huge Christian, and I myself I'm a Christian too. So he prayed for me, and I want in the back of my mind I want to think that's like a special moment that I've been endowed by prayer from Glen King, but I don't
Yeah.
know. If I don't work again, if I don't work at it, I truly don't think God's gonna like, oh, all of a sudden you have magical power, art skills. No, it doesn't work that way. It does not work that way. You got to work at it with all your heart, mind, and soul. But yeah, when you say Glenn King, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember
I
Glenn
know
prayed
that
for
guy.
me. Yeah, I remember he prayed for me once, and yeah. But anyways, yes, thank you, Michael, for that awesome encouragement, and that kind of reminds me of my days back in school when I put my artwork up to because again from where I came from I had an architecture background, and then so my art was not as illustrative as the illustration people. Like when I put my head portrait next to a guy who's been doing it for like, you know 5-10 years, of course mine is gonna not look good as his. But the fact is, I'm a little bit of a stubborn son of a bitch in that I do not like to look bad in front of my peers. And so because that happened, it pushed me to become a better artist. And a lot of my classes, I always go in as the second worst student, but usually come out of it as the second or third best student out of the class. And I was always very, very proud of myself being able to do that. And same thing, like when I first started the digital illustration with Scott Drake, I was like the worst because I never had any digital art experience before, but I worked my ass off because everyone in there was so good. I just didn't want to look bad. And so the first time I didn't get the Disney internship, but the second time that I took his class, I got the internship. So that just shows that if I am able and capable and patient enough, oh God, I'm not patient. But patient and hardworking enough that we can get there just as long as we are able to, do it day by day and not give up. And so yeah, that was really encouraging, Michael, and I appreciate that. I will look at those two games and try to compare ourselves with them, so that I have a high goal to attain, like something to hit, like a goal. Like I wanted to look as good as theirs and not just do
Mm-hmm.
something, not play around here, but I want to reach for the stars where they are, like No Man's Sky and Chorus and
Hell
the
yeah.
games. And then so basically I want to go this direction, even though if we fall short of it, at least
Mm-hmm.
we'll end up here somewhere and not like starting from nowhere. Because imitation is I forget what that phrase is. Imitation is a form of flattery or something like that.
Mm.
But
The
what I'm
highest
trying to
form of flattery.
highest form, yeah, I want to be as good as them, because right now I'm nothing. I've never had any experience, so I want to look at these guys and make sure that I can be as good as them. So yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's that yeah, so like I kind of had like two different pieces to my argument, and I think you just hit on the third one there, and that is like using the comparison to motivate you to
Mm,
like
mm, mm,
to look at it and not be discouraged, but to be encouraged, to be
mhm.
better, to be as good, to see that really cool animation from Glenn Keane and be like, someday I'm gonna be that good. If
Yeah,
you can if you can avoid the like, I'm never gonna be that good. I'm gonna give up now,
yeah.
and you can make the comparison and have it be motivating, which it sounds like exactly what you were just describing, then yeah, hell yeah, you can take that. It's like judo, right, or jujitsu, where you like use the enemy's attack against them.
Momentum. Yeah.
So
Yep.
yeah, then you just spin it around and like,
Whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
creative jujitsu.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Creative Jiu-Jitsu. Ooh, that is cool.
Hell yeah.
Nice, nice. Oh, it seems that BluBlu has posted his stuff in
Oh, perfect.
the blah 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 in the
Discord.
gallery. Yeah, in the oh no, in the general.
Okay, let's
And
take a look.
I shall open this up in Firefox. Open up. Actually, that's not Firefox. That is yeah, it's Firefox. All right, give me 1 second, guys.
Sure.
And and then open up this one right here. Open up original. Okay, great. And then sorry, give me 1 second, guys. Do 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 do. Okay, and I'm going to share this with you, Michael. Share my screen
Okay.
and share screen number 4. Boom. And then I will go here. Oh, perfect. Oh, sweet. So you guys see it, right?
Blueprint.
So
Is
the
this this is Unreal, right? Captain BlueBlu? I think Blueprint is the sort of
blueprint.
like visual, um, I don't know what the
So
visual scripting I think they call it,
so in
or
his
is this or is it Blender?
in the Discord, this is not Blender. In this Discord, he says, note, event tick is a command done once per frame. In this engine, Unreal branch is what they call an if. Red means bool and teal means integer. Image one, image one is the one that we're looking at right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And image one, first check the current charge. I think I used the wrong check here, but it takes illustrates but I think I used the wrong check here, but it illustrates my point. Basically, is the charge maxed? And then oh, there's actually 3 images. Uh but yeah, Michael, if you look at the Discord and open it up, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure you guys can have a awesome conversation about this, because I don't understand any of it. I apologize.
No, that's totally fine. Yeah, I'm not very familiar with so I've never used Unreal. I know of it based on like the research that I did early on when Chris and I were trying to decide like, okay, we know we're making a video game, like what engine do we use? So I got a little bit familiar with Unreal in that sense. So that's how I knew that, like, oh yeah, Blueprint. I think that's the visual scripting in Unreal, but I've never actually used it before. I've never used any visual scripting before.
Mm, mm,
Um,
mm.
so it's probably going to take me some time to digest and understand like what's going on, like what the logic is. Um, so I should probably do that off stream, but I will. And if I have questions, I'll definitely let you know, Captain BluBlu. But thank you so much for sharing this. This is actually, I mean, it's so cool to have you in the chat and be able to like, I can say like, oh, I'm running into this problem coding. You're like, hey, try this thing. Like, you ever thought about this? Um, Part of the magic of the Creative Tavern, I think, and
Yeah, thank
doing
you so
this.
much, BluBlu.
Yeah. So I'm gonna take a look at this offline, and I'll report back in uh, whether or not I was able to figure it out or if I have questions. Um, yeah. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I'm trying to learn, and I'm just re looking at it right now. It seems like
Sure.
cause when I'm looking at this node setup, it reminds me of Blender's texture nodes as
Hmm.
well. So it's kind of cool. It's very very cool actually. But yeah, no, thank you so much, Captain BlueBlue. Really appreciate you sending this uh, to us so we could educate us.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Nice. Um, okay, so
Mm.
Michael, I want to share with you um, something that I've worked on this past 3 days. As you know, I've talked about the tarot cards a lot, and I've been working on it, and I want to really share with you in the chat uh, the progress I made so far. Is that cool if I share this really quick?
Yeah. 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 Of
Yeah,
course.
cool. All right, so I'm gonna share. This is kind of
Ooh.
like the preview. Uh, the goal that I want, that I need in order to produce 100 decks, is $2,500, right? This one right here.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a little video right here that I created in, well, actually, I don't know if you're able, can you see this?
Yep. I can see it.
Okay. Oh, perfect. I'll just play it here then. So first when you land on this page, you'll see this, and
Mm-hmm.
then you'll be able to play this video like so, and I'll just max it.
Ooh.
Hopefully, and it'll max. Look at my
Oh, cool. Yeah.
hands, and, and then I had to like find fake flowers and shit, and then find a
Oh no, that's
blue
great.
scarf, and then try to make it look like artsy fartsy and junk. And there's like so many takes I had to do because my hand was like it looks too abrupt, you know. And I'm just like, oh god, I need to
Mm-hmm.
finesse it a little bit more, and then so just taking multiple takes and whatnot. Um, Basically showing the back and then show the front, and then I did a little soft transition, and then basically wanting to show each card by itself, by just kind of lightly throwing it, not throwing it, but just gently laying it down um, on the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, yeah. And basically I just go through all of it. I'm not gonna make you guys watch the whole thing. I'm just gonna go boo boo boo. It just keeps falling. Raindrop keeps falling on my head. Oh, sorry. Let me go back. So that's the last card. Tarot cards drawn by Christopher Lee. Cards available in the description below. Blah 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 blah. Music arranged by Alexander Nakarada. And thank you so much for watching, Chris Lee. So that
Yeah.
is the
Awesome.
yeah, that is the video that they will first see, and then when you scroll down, you'll see the little tarot cards header, and then here's a little introduction. Um, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. Yeah, okay, good. Introduction, and then here's kind of like the photo of the front cover deck, and then here's the cards within the deck itself. Um, Hi there, welcome to my card or Kickstarter campaign. My name is Chris Lee. Thank you so much for supporting in the past. Big hugs. And then tarot cards, and just showing my two favorite cards in the back. Let's check out all the cards, and then here is kind of like the format of all the cards that you will get in a deck. And man, doing all this, putting all this images together, it takes so much time and energy. I have so much respect for people who actually know how to do this kind of stuff professionally. Um, but yeah, I'm just like trying to more or less mimic them and trying to emulate what they do. And so I'm breaking it down to various suits, the cups, pentacles, swords, and then wands. So there's all the 78 cards they are able to take a look at really quickly. And here's the cover, back of the card cover. And then I went ahead and created painting process. I embedded
Ooh.
a YouTube video. I'll just click on it really quick. I'm not gonna spend too much time on it. So this is the major arcana, the Fool, and then so from here I show the potential backers how I created the cards just by first drawing it, sketching it out really quickly, um, really rough doodles, just to show that if you can make stick figures, you could get it looking really nice. It all starts with a stick figure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. So, anyways, stick figures to line art. Boy, my internet is like chugging. So from here, and then from there to kind of like a full painting, kind of like that, right? And it's all fast. It's all done in like 800 times speed. Yeah. Anyways, so I did the painting progress for the Fool, the card cover, like how I designed this card. Um, I did one for the Two of Cups, the Two of Pentacles, King of Swords, as well as Eight of Wands. Really quick question, Michael, do you feel like having 5 process videos is a little bit too much? Can I get rid of like 2 or 3 of them?
Um, well, yes, if you yes, I think like if you feel like the 5 is too many and you want to get rid of a couple, I think that's fine. I don't think it'll get rid of anything. I would include a link though to like a playlist where you
Hmm.
have all of them on YouTube. So if people are like, "Ooh, that was cool. I want to see him do the other ones." Because if you already have
Mm-hmm.
those videos available, like I would just link it there.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
the well, I mean, the other thing that I would say, you don't have to take this because I know you've already put in a lot of effort into this and it looks like you're really close to the finish line. So I wouldn't want to give you more work to do but it could be cool to have one that showcase that's shorter, that's not like 15 minutes, it's maybe only like 3 minutes long, but
Mm.
shows a like hyper sped up version. Like if that was 800%, like maybe some that are 1200 speed.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But just like clips where you're kind of showing a couple of the different ones in their different stages, just to sort of
Yeah.
like, hey, look, almost like you can think of it as like a preview video for this playlist uh, of speed painting videos,
Right.
where it's just like a little sampling trailer of like, oh, here's kind of like me going through all these things. If you want to see more, click the link.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
I could definitely do that. I mean, I have all the video files. I could just speed it up and chop it up into shorter pieces.
yeah, so can consider that. But
Yeah.
yeah, overall, I mean that's cool, and I'm glad that you included it because that is kind of neat to see the behind the scenes work of it,
Yeah.
and the production quality on the thumbnails is fantastic. Like they all look great.
Yeah, cool, thanks. Again, graphics stuff, I try to just bullshit it and hopefully it looks good. I
Working.
look at, yeah, I just look at other people's stuff. I'm like, okay, how do they do it? Okay, this is how they do it. All right. And then from there we get into the reward section. And I'm just going to really quickly explain. It's pretty easy. If you pledge $40 plus shipping, you get one deck of cards. If you pledge for two decks, you get 6% discount. And just $75 instead of $80, right? And if you get three, you get 108. You get 10% discount. And if you get four, you get 16% discount and one at a price of 136. So that's it. That's basically it. I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. Don't do anything too crazy. If they just want to buy one, then they can get one. If they get two, they get 6% discount, and so on and so forth. And here I'm just going to just really quickly show them like, oh, these are the cards. A description of what types of cards that are printed on, like the card stock and whatnot. A really quick description.
Mm-hmm.
Comes with a custom printed Lux box. I think Lux means luxury. I'm not really 100% sure on that, but that's what the website said. So
Mm,
I'm like, okay, I'll just do a Lux box.
Xbox.
Um,
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah, the cards uh will snug. Oh, will fit
Will
snug and
fit
nice. Yeah,
snug.
yeah, I gotta change that. Um, Here's the thing, shipping. Okay, so in the past, I've basically I basically asked the backers to include the shippings with their pledge. So Michael, if you bought like a $10 worth of something and let's just say it takes $5 for me to ship it to you, right? So total
Mm-hmm.
is $15. So you would pay $15 here in Kickstarter. However, Kickstarter takes about 8% of anything that anyone pledges into your campaign. So if it's $15, they're gonna take 8% of that $15. They don't care what it is. If it's the $10 to buy the deck of cards, or if it's $5 for me to ship it to you, they don't care. They just take 8% of everything, right? So so for example, if you take 8% of away from $5, I'm basically stuck with less than $5 to buy the shipping postage, right? So I'm eating the cost, right? So this campaign, I'm gonna try to separate and do my own shipping process. So I'm telling the buyers, or not buyers, the backers, that in the description, shipping will be charged via PayPal after the campaign ends to make sure everyone gets the most accurate shipping price. See shipping section for an estimated cost, right? And then so I went ahead and created kind of like a shipping estimated shipping section. So for one deck,
Mm.
shipping it could be in the US, it's like maybe $5 to $6, or two decks is 9 to 13. So for example, because I live in Vegas, where I am right now, um, for example, if I send something to LA, that would be considered zone 1 because it's very close to me. Vegas and LA is really, really close. But if I sent something to you, it would be different than sending something to LA, because it travels farther.
Mm-hmm.
And also, the comparison between LA and let's say New York is totally different, right? So for example, like three decks, if I sent three decks to LA, it would cost $10 using USPS what is it? USPS priority mail, right? But if I sent it to New York, the same service would cost $19. So it would be very, very unfair to charge someone living in LA $19 because the way that Kickstarter does it basically says in the United States, okay, if someone buys three decks, how much do you want to charge them for shipping? Well, I can't really answer that because some someone might be in LA, someone might be in New York, right? That's I can't I that's not fair to charge someone $19 in LA, right? And I thought of like, oh, maybe if I, add the 10 and 19 together and then divide that by 2 and then have everyone pay like a medium amount, that still doesn't work. What if
Yeah.
there's more people in LA? What if there's more people in New York? either I'm taking advantage of other people's shipping costs, or I'm paying it out of pocket, right? So that's why I'm thinking of doing it this way, just essentially separating it. And there's a cost benefit to that too. I'll show you the breakdown, the Excel sheet that I created. I'm very proud of it. Yeah. Essentially, moving on, how it works. You pledge for rewards, and I basically showed here's my past Kickstarter campaigns that I created for some of the enamel pins that I did. So here are the Steampunk Sailors Part 2, Steampunk Sailors Part 3, and also Astro Gals pins and stickers, these Zodiac babies, and show a little bit of cost breakdown. 66% of the funds goes to manufacturing, 14% goes to packaging and shipping, 20% margin of error, Kickstarter fees, processing fees, and taxes. And show them the timeline, an estimated timeline. I still gotta this is just carried over from a previous um, campaign. I just needed something, a placeholder in there.
Mm-hmm.
About me and a short thank you, and also the risk and challenges. So that's what I've done so far for this tarot card Kickstarter. And yeah, so the thing that I want to show you, Michael, and something that I'm super proud of is this. Hopefully you are seeing the Excel spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, my OBS is not wanting to show it to. Oh, no, 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 no. It doesn't want to show it to the viewers. Ah, come on, man. Oh, here he goes. Okay. Oh, shoot. It's lagging. I apologize, guys. Apologize. Okay. So, here we go. As we know that my goal is to obtain at least $2,500 for this project, right? And I apologize, this isn't really, you know, formatted really beautifully like how you always do, Michael. So I need to learn a lot from you, man. Okay,
No
but
problem.
essentially there's two columns. One is Stripe. Stripe is the service that I use in my Cute Pin Club shop, as well as PayPal, right? So essentially there's Stripe and PayPal. Those are the two, transaction services that most of everyone uses on their e-commerce site, and their transaction fee is 2.9% of whatever thing that you made profited off of, plus a
Mm-hmm.
30 cents uh, transaction fee on top of the 2.9% of whatever you paid for. Okay.
Okay.
Kickstarter doesn't give a fuck. They just take 8%. They're like, all right, we'll just take 8% of it. This is not being fair. This is me calculating like uh, what happens is Kickstarter is also kind of like a 2.9 and a 3 cents.
Mm.
However, when I do the full calculation, more often than not, it's 8% of my total funds. It takes if it's $100, if I make $100 on Kickstarter, Kickstarter is going to take $8. That's basically it, right?
Okay.
So I went ahead and created like this little function here. Look at that. Be proud of me, man.
Ooh.
Yeah, look at this. This is just 10 right here is an input number. Order here is also kind of a variable input number. So if I change this to like 123, $123,
Nice.
and then boom, it goes something like that. And depending on the amount of orders, again, let's say 123, um, you know, you'll see the difference, right? So essentially is, let's just say $40 is the one tarot card, right? One deck of tarot cards. So $40. And then let's say I need maybe 70 people pledged. Boom, right there. I've obtained 2,600. So that is absolutely enough for me to fund the
Cool.
campaign, right? So if I include the what is it? The add-ons as well as the shipping costs within Kickstarter, um, it would basically take I would only obtain this amount of money, $2,576. If I just ask the people to go ahead and include your shipping, include add-ons, I will get this number. But Kickstarter is going to take 8% away. However, if I separate the add-ons and the shipping costs, I can make this amount of money. And the difference between this and this is essentially here. It's $121. So basically, it's taking this, subtracting that, right?
Sure. Hmm.
And $121 is, to me, is a lot of money. Let's just say like if there's like 500, let's just say a lot of people likes it, they want to buy, yeah, 500, boom. The difference between doing it myself using PayPal versus just letting Kickstarter do its own thing, it's a $870 difference. That's a lot of money, Michael. And
That is a lot.
I never really given a much thought to like, oh, let's just let Kickstarter take care of it, right? But man, this 2 years that I've been doing Kickstarter, I've again, much like the investment that I placed in UBS, I did not make a lot of profit because all the profit I made went to UBS, right? Or Kickstarter. So if I do it my way, taking care of the shipping costs and the add-ons as utilizing PayPal instead as lower transaction fee, I'm able to keep more money. So that
Hell
that's what
yeah.
I've worked on this past 2 days. And even though it seems like, oh, it's 8%, oh, it's 3%, that's a big difference. Like $870, that's a shit ton of difference, man. So, and being a numbers guy, especially with money, Michael, I thought that you would enjoy what I did, showed you guys this. Yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. Yeah, I'm very proud of you for getting in there and crunching the
Yeah.
numbers and yeah, because I mean, human brains just are not really capable of looking at like 2.9% and 8% and going like, "Oh, I know exactly how that breaks down and what that means."
Mhm. Mhm.
You have to put it into a spreadsheet or write it down on a piece of paper or do something to like, what if it's this number and this number? Oh,
Yeah.
that's what it does. What if it's this number
Right.
and this number? Ooh, that,
Right.
and then you can start seeing the picture come to life. So I love doing this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm glad
Yeah.
to see you doing it and using the formulas and figuring
Mm.
that stuff out because having some of those things, like some understanding of how to do that, really unlocks your ability to like start dissecting your financial situation and start making these decisions about like, oh wow, look at that.
Yeah.
I Here's money that I didn't even know was uh, up for grabs. That was it's like looking in your couch and finding like, oh man, there's $870 in here.
Mm-mm. Yeah, yeah. So
Um,
so yeah, it partly I did this because you have motivated me to be more mindful of, investments slash profits slash giving money away to companies. If you don't need to, then don't, just keep it for yourself. Do the extra hard work. Because if I do this by myself, if I actually take this and try to figure out the shipping costs by myself, there's actually a lot more work to it. I have to like actually break down the weight, and then I have to create yet another uh formula and function. Like if this backer bought this and added more stuff onto the order, then the ounces increases. So therefore, if it increases, the cost of the postage
mm,
would increase as well. So I need to figure out to do some function and math to make sure everything looks good. And by doing it this way, control I'm able to control the shipping cost from shipping to LA versus shipping to New York. That was a huge thing for me because before, shipping pins, it wasn't, I mean, shipping these little tiny pins, their
mm,
weight is very, very insignificant. It's like one
mm,
ounce. So 1 ounce
mhm,
shipping to LA and to New York was almost the same. But because I'm sending like a bigger package. This
Sure.
has length, width, depth, and it's
Mm-hmm.
heavier.
And a
So,
lot more weight, yeah,
oh yeah, yeah, and so that actually will make a huge difference. Um,
totally.
yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm surprised that Kickstarter doesn't have, because like I sell a lot of stuff on eBay, and on eBay you type in, you'd say like, here's how much this thing weighs, here are the dimensions of the box, here's the shipping service I'm gonna use,
mhm,
and then
mhm,
it says like, okay, no problem. When the buyer buys the thing, we'll we'll calculate how much they should pay for shipping. So then it like figures out like, oh, the buyer's in zip code XYZ, it's shipping from zip
mhm,
code, you know, ABC,
mhm, mhm,
uh, the buyer should pay this much. And then, and another cool thing that eBay does, kind of a random aside here at this point, that is kind of unrelevant to the point, but I just thought it was really cool because it's new, is
mhm,
eBay
mhm,
will say like, hey, you want to just buy a label from us and just like, and we'll send you a QR code and you could just take that into the UPS store and then
mhm,
scan it
mhm.
and they'll ship the thing. I was like, oh shit. And they offer like a discount too. It was like half the
Yeah,
price. It's like,
yeah.
um, but anyway, I'm surprised that Kickstarter doesn't do that, or doesn't do
No, no.
at the very least like offer some
Mhm.
variable like, oh, it's shipping, far away. That
Nope.
should cost more.
It's basically United States and any other countries like, Canada, China or Taiwan, Australia, it's just but within US there's like different zones. So how do you know like I could say, "Oh yes, $5 for this item," but it's not really $5 because $5 can go to LA, but that'll cover the cost to go to LA, but the $5 doesn't cover the cost to go to New York. So it's like it doesn't work. A lot of people use this website called BackerKit. They actually are able to, you know, have have the backers go on their website, input the add-ons as well as input their home location, email address, and shipping address, and that
Hmm.
site does the whole servicing for Kickstarter.
Mm.
However, they charge a premium exactly to do all that for you, and I don't want to spend money to do that. I'd rather spend a little bit extra time and effort to keep that money for myself because if the backers added stuff on to their pledge, backer kit will take X amount of yet another company will take another X amount of profit from or commission from you using their website. So they're gonna say, oh, if they're gonna buy that add-on on our website, we're gonna go ahead and take 6% from, if you charge, like
Oh
ten
my gosh.
dollars, yeah, we're gonna take, 60 cents from that from your product. I'm just like, oh, come on, everyone's just like biting off the bits of my
Yeah.
profit. I don't like
Everyone
it,
wants
and
a cut.
everyone wants a cut, man. That sucks, dude. Yeah. Oh, Captain BlueBlu
Well,
says. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
uh, well, I was just gonna say, there were two things that I was gonna say about the Kickstarter in general, but I think that might have just answered one of my questions, or one of the things I was gonna say, is it sounds like it's totally fine because my question was going to be like, hey, maybe is Kickstarter okay with you separating the shipping
Mhm,
from the
mhm,
Kickstarter campaign?
mhm,
Because like eBay is not okay with that. Like
mhm.
they have very strict guidelines about you are not allowed to do any like have any interaction with the between the buyer and seller outside of the eBay platform. And if you
Right, right.
do, they can shut down your account.
Holy cow. Jeez.
But it sounds like Kickstarter's like, oh yeah, sure, backer kit, whatever. If you want to
Yeah.
handle it on your own thing,
Mhm,
like,
mhm.
oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, I think they know their shipping system is not robust, and
Mm,
I think a lot of people have complained about it. They complain so much that they just don't really think about it anymore. They just go to use the service BackerKit, and they're like, "Oh, we'll just use them." And there's other service too. There's various versions of BackerKits that people can use. I'm just a cheap asshole. I don't want to
hey,
spend more
no,
money.
yeah,
Yeah,
go for it. No,
yeah.
yeah, I think what you're doing is great because it's gonna save you money. It's gonna save your customers money.
Mm,
It's just the
mm,
smarter way to do it. Yeah, I was just worried like, oh, don't get in trouble with Kickstarter, because if they get pissed off that you're like, oh, just trying to sneak around and
Right,
do it
right, right.
outside of the platform, because sometimes, like I said, companies can get a little fussy about that. But it sounds like it's
Sure.
okay, so
Yeah, yeah.
don't worry.
And the Captain Blue says, I noticed your cost breakdown didn't include your salary. My salary? Didn't include my salary. How come you chose not to make profit from this? Um, the uh, the goal of this Kickstarter is to obviously make profit. I think I make profit when I exceed, let's just say, how many did I say? 70 orders. Once I obtained 70 people, if 70 people pledged, then I obtained, this amount of money to buy, 100, uh, 100 decks, right? And so if I were to, you know, here's the 70, right? Here's the 70 people that bought the decks. I'm able to use that. The 100, basically 100 minus 70 is 30, right? So essentially, I have 30 decks left to sell on that surplus. It's basically surplus that I can sell this on my own website and or on my Etsy store. So whatever I sell of these 30 decks at X amount of money, that would be my profit, right? But the goal of it all right now is to just essentially reach to like 2,576. But if I do it myself, I can actually make $2,697. So yeah, this is the profit, right? Right. And obviously, let's just say, people buy, let's just say if everyone buys at least two, right? Two, wait, hold on. I said $75, right? Because two is $75. And let's say um, Michael was able to market for me and he gets like 3,000 people to get it, right? And then so I make this amount of money. Shit, that's a lot of money. Um, and then I would obviously by then, I would probably buy a lot more decks. And the more decks I buy, the cheaper the cost. So essentially, the more money I make, the less money I spend buying the decks, if that makes sense. Um, so yeah, so there definitely is profit to be made out of this, but the initial goal is to at least get if let's just say again, if everyone if 70 people bought one deck at $40, I will obtain the goal of the 2,500. And if there's 70 people here, I have 100 decks. I have 30 decks left, and then so I could use that and buy that, sell that at profit. So that in itself is profit. So it's a little fun breakdown of Kickstarter um, project slash goals. Hopefully that makes sense. And yeah, thank you so much, Michael, again for being the first inspirational guy that, who taught me how to not overlook the percentages. So high five to you, man. Thank you so much for helping me out with that. I really,
Oh
really
yeah,
appreciate it. Really, really, really appreciate it.
my pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah, great work with this. Like, this is fantastic, and it's, you cannot manage what you don't measure, and so good for you on getting that stuff measured. That way you can actually start playing, pulling the dials and levers and seeing like what you need to change and how it does what. Um, One other thing that I would say, totally unsolicited feedback, and you don't have to take it, because I think it could potentially be like, ugh, God, more shit for me to do before I can launch this Kickstarter thing. But it's important, and so I'm going to
Mm.
give the
Yeah,
feedback
please.
and
Please.
help you get as much like marketing traction as you can.
Hmm.
Think you The video that you have um, is is fine, but I think it feels really functional to me. Of like, okay, here's every single one of these cards. I think you could do something to make it a little bit more like marketing sexy, a little bit more pizzazz. What I think would be more helpful for me as somebody who's like going to the page, the very first thing I see is this video and clicking play,
Mhm. Mhm.
instead of seeing the sort of like the unboxing and then each card at a time, I almost think there should be three different videos. Uh, One of them should be the unboxing, where you're showing
Mhm.
like, okay, here's the box, here's the back of the box. Let me open this thing. Here's the cards inside. Here's what they're going to look like, and then maybe fan them out a little bit, and then put it back in. And that video is just about the box. And you could even put commentary on there if you want, or not, or just label it the unboxing video and show that.
Mhm.
And then a separate video is the like, here's every single one of the cards in video form going onto the pile. But the very first video, and put those bury those a little bit deeper in the list, like in the section of their own where it's like, packaging, and then you would have the video of like, here's the unboxing, and then like all the cards, like, and then have that video there. The very like marquee video though, what I would do with that is I would do a much shorter video, maybe only like a minute, minute and a half or so,
Mhm.
about 90 seconds, and make it a video version of the entire rest of the page. So where you've got like a section that shows,
Oh.
uh, because you want to have that be, you've got 90 seconds to capture their attention, and they're going to
Yeah.
watch that. They're like, "Ooh, this is sexy. I'm interested in spending some more time here and maybe making a purchase. I'm going to scroll down and start getting into the details." But you want that video to be the like the little taster of overall. And so what I would do is that that sort of like setup that you had with like the flowers and the lavender colored
Uh-huh.
tablecloth, whatever, was fantastic. I would put your product there, so like the box there, and then do some like very gentle camera movements where you're kind of like where the lighting is fine, and maybe like pan the camera around it slowly, and
Uh-huh.
have text there that's like, tarot cards includes 78 cards, and then a nice soft transition from that to one where it's like open, and you can see maybe a couple of the cards like fanned out, maybe, and fan out the cards in the like the pentacles set and the
Uh-huh.
cup
Uh-huh.
set,
Right.
and out in such a way where you can see some, like the front card artwork really well, and then like little hints of the other artwork, but they're laid out in this very uniform fan shape, and then
Uh-huh.
again pan the camera over them, maybe get a couple of like real intense depth of field shots where you're like very close up on one of the cards, and the
Mhm.
rest of the background are kind of faded away. Um, and have like the text on the bottom of the screen saying like, ooh, the however many like 12 cards in the pentacle set, or whatever it is, and then just kind of do like a little sampling of each of the different sets of cards, and then
Oh.
maybe even have like yeah, I don't know, basically the point of all that is just like do little like snippets of the thing kind of laid out, and then like a slow sexy pan and some depth of field stuff,
Yeah.
um just to kind of show at a real quick pace, here's what this thing is about. And then have the more detailed videos and images, and because everything that you have like in the website format is like fantastic. I think all that stuff looks really, really good. Um, but I think the video can be a snappier, sexier version of that, if that makes sense.
Sorry, when you first said to make a video of the website, I was just thinking like a literal version of a video quickly scrolling through the website. Is that also what you're saying to do as well? Because
Mm,
I
mm,
understand the panning of the various, cards. I
well,
totally get that. I think that makes a lot of sense.
can
Go
you
ahead.
pull up the website again real quick, and I'll kind of
Yeah,
explain what I mean.
give me one
Almost,
sec.
you can almost think of like the website as the screenplay for the video, where each one of the sort of like sections that you have do a quick little sexy video pan of that section. So yeah, if we scroll up to the top, so okay, so you got your video there, and then let's scroll down a little bit to the first part. Okay, so tarot card. So like yeah, right there,
Mm-hmm.
that very first image right there, you could have that be the very first thing that you see in the video, which you I can't remember because we only watched once. You may have already done that. Um, and then go ahead and and maybe like have that image moving slowly into the camera a little bit. But then
Uh-huh.
yeah, like right here, this part with the introduction, do this exact same setup, but with a slow, sexy camera pan over the cards, and maybe have a
Uh,
couple of shots where like one is depth of field, where you're very close to the front cover, and then
uh-huh.
the back cover is faded out, and then another one from a slightly different angle that's closer to the back cover cards. So you do like one shot like that, and then maybe have some text overlaid here that says something like, 78 beautifully rendered custom artwork prints or
Mhm.
whatever.
Mhm.
And then go ahead and scroll down, keep going. There you go, bam. You could do another one like that where just take basically that exact same setup and then do another sexy slow pan over that.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and then go ahead and keep going. Okay, so yeah, like right here, so some of these things, then what you could do is do some like detailed shots that pick like 4 or 5 of these, fan them out, and do a slow pan over those, and then maybe
Yeah.
do one where you got like 3 or 4 different fans all on the table at the same time, but some of them are uh, blurry in the depth of field, and you're kind of just like moving the camera over them, and the camera's kind of like uh, investigating the cards and spending some time, some like quality time on one. Like maybe, you've got like what you see on the screen right here, you've got the tower, the star, the moon. Maybe all of those are kind of fanned out, but the camera
Mhm.
is moving over and kind of spends a little bit of time looking in detail at the tower. Because what you want to do with this like first video is not show everybody like the full contents of everything that you've got going, but it's to like give them a sample of here's what this is. It is a deck of tarot cards with custom art that looks like this.
Uh-huh.
Here's a detailed look of like what that artwork looks like up close, the card texture, the sort of like feel of what this thing is. Like if you buy this, this is what you are
You're gonna get.
uh yeah, buying into.
Yeah.
Um so maybe a couple of shots like that with like some nice cross dissolves. Keep scrolling. And then yeah, kind of same thing with cups and pentacles. You
Mhm.
could just do
Mhm.
a couple of those. And then yeah, and then the painting process, you can maybe put a little thing in there too of like a quick 15 to 20-second speed painting video where
Mhm.
then
Mhm.
the text on the bottom would say all hand paint or digitally painted by
Right.
hand by me.
Right.
I'm, one artist. You could even have like a little picture of yourself if you want. Um, Go ahead and keep scrolling. And then, okay, yeah, great. The rewards, this section, you could do, like at the tail end of the video, you can show like the, basically just the infographics that you've already created here, which look fantastic, by the way. These look really good. You could just show like, here's the Tarot Guards deck, here's how much it costs, and then kind of fade in the other options if you want to buy like in
Yeah.
bulk. You
Uh-huh.
can show those kind of things. Keep scrolling. Uh, that image right there, that actually would be a really good one for the video too. Just lay the
Uh.
cards out like that, and then
Uh-huh.
do. I keep talking about the
The
camera pan,
pan.
and the
Yeah.
reason for that is because the product doesn't move. So in order to create some more visual
Dynamic
interest
movement.
in the video, move the camera.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, keep scrolling. And then yeah, you could also do one about the box too. Well, I guess I think I'd already mentioned that before, but you can uh,
Mm.
do the same thing where you've got like one nice sexy shot or maybe like
Mhm.
2 or 3 very quick shots together that only last like maybe 5 to 10 seconds at most with the text on the screen saying
Yeah.
basically what you have here, like deluxe uh, custom printed box, uh, something short and sweet that'll fit on the screen that
Right.
tells them what this is and why they should want it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then keep scrolling.
Gone.
This chart is really helpful too, by the way. I don't think this needs to go into the video.
Yeah. No, I agree.
But you should include in the video shipping to USA, to Canada, to Australia, and internationally.
Right.
Um, but that's all you have to do. Just include
Mhm.
like some
Mhm.
text in there that says that.
Right.
And then for the rest of it, I don't think you need to get into these details, but you can just do some sort of call to action at the very end that's like, pledge now, Kickstarter available, and here's the dates.
Yeah.
Um, so
Wow.
anyway, that's my two
Nice.
cents from like
That's
a
great,
marketing
man.
perspective.
Yeah. Shit, that's awesome, dude. Wow. I didn't even think about all that. Holy cow. Okay, I have to redo the whole. Damn it. Damn it, Michael.
I'm sorry.
Ah. No, but
I
it's
know. I'm
good.
always giving you so much more
It's
homework to do.
it's good. It's really, really good. Yeah, cause like you said, the whole, grab them when they're watching, cause they're only there. Our attention span is very short, and we have to make sure we grab them by the balls, yeah, and squeeze and
Yeah,
make them sing.
exactly.
Yeah. So yes, thank you. Man, I gotta settle. You have any idea what it takes
It
to like
looks
put all
so
these
good though.
but these stupid flower thing is like so annoying,
I
man.
know.
And plus the scarf thing wrinkles like so like if you if
Mm-hmm.
you if you accidentally bump into it, it'll just like wrinkle. It's just like, oh my God. Um
Damn it.
yeah, but anyways, that's really 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 good feedback. So thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to tell me all this great feedback. I definitely will do it.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and
Marketing, baby.
this yeah, it totally is. I need a marketer in my life. I need a person who's
I
able
know.
to
We both do.
who will help us with marketing. Anyways, so yes, the Kickstarter probably won't start for another 2 weeks because I still need to send out the previous Kickstarter stuff so that
Mm-hmm.
Kickstarter will let me send out or do another Kickstarter because it needs to wrap up before you can start another one.
Sure.
So yeah, so at least 2 weeks at least to get this. So I do still have some time. I do still have some
Okay.
time. But boy, I tell you, like, anyways, there's other stuff I could talk about, but it's just one thing, and then one thing you change, and it's like, oh crap, I gotta change that, and then there's another
Mm-hmm.
thing you gotta change, and you just kind of go down a rabbit
Yep.
hole, and then you realize I'm spending way too much time on this. I gotta get to my game, or I gotta do my other Kickstarter stuff, and just like, ah, goodness. But anyways, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time and the amazing uh uh do that. Boop. There you go. Amazing feedback. So I really appreciate it, man. We have gone over our allotted time, and I apologize. Sorry, guys. But I I selfishly don't care because I need all the I need all the feedback and tips that I can get from Michael. So yeah, thank you. And fortunately or unfortunately, we don't have this week. We didn't get any updates in the gallery. And Captain BluBlu said it's gonna be great. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it, Captain BluBlu.
It is gonna
That
be great. I
yeah,
agree.
I hope so. Fingers crossed. I worked so hard on this. If it gets funded, that's great. If not, then it's nothing to cry about. At least I tried, right? But yes, anyways, with that said, we don't have any new artwork from our gallery, so I think we can wrap it up very soon. Very, very soon, Michael. So, if you guys are watching, please give us a follow on our social here at the Creative Tavern, as well as follow Michael and myself in the various social platforms that we have going on. And you
Oh
can
yeah.
find me at twitch.tv/lead design studio. And you can find Michael here as well every week. And I'm going to go ahead and let him talk. Sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
No, no, no. That's okay. I mean, really, it's the same thing every week. Like,
Yeah.
basically, the place to find me is here.
Yeah.
So until future notice,
And your book. In your
every
book.
oh yes, I've got my book, which you can see on screen there, Blockbuster Blueprint. I'll be working on a second edition later, not in the immediate future, probably later this year. Um, but yeah, so if you're interested in storytelling and how stories, like big blockbuster stories work, check the book out. Otherwise, you can find me here, hanging out with Chris, making a video game, talking about creative stuff every Wednesday and Sunday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if that sounds good, come on in. And we'll serve
Yeah.
you up a drink too.
Yes. Oh, shoot. Oh, I'm so sorry, Captain BluBlu. I
Yeah, we
forgot to give you your
forgot
drink.
Captain BluBlu's
Oh,
drink.
sorry,
We'll
sorry,
give
sorry,
you a
sorry.
road beer.
Yeah. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. There you go. There's your rum and coke. Yeah.
There you
Um.
go.
Yeah. So really quick. Michael, I think I discussed this with you. Maybe in one of our streams, maybe we don't talk about the rail shooter game. Maybe for 1 week on a Wednesday, we could talk about your book. We could talk about storytelling. This creative
Sure.
tavern doesn't always have to be about rail shooter, right? If one
Yeah.
day you decide to, share with us one of your excerpts or chapters from your book, I will be more than happy to, listen to you talk about it. And I'm sure people here would want to listen as well and to be educated. So
Totally.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
cool,
yeah. No problem.
cool, cool. All right,
Sounds
guys.
good.
Thank you so much for being here, Captain BluBlu. I want to thank you for being here and giving us awesome advice. Please get some rest now. I know it's super late slash very, very early in the morning now. And I hope to see you Sunday. And I have stuff to show you guys, all the scene 4 stuff that I will be doing. So yeah. All right. See you. Have a good rest of the week, guys. Take care.
So long,
Bye.
folks. Stay
Yeah.
creative.
Yeah, stay creative. Take care, Captain BluBlu. Bye. High five. All right. Yeah. Stream has ended. Okay. And go ahead and end stream. And stop recording.